16th, 2019. We are in this Sturbridge Center office building at 301 Main Street. If you'd like to join us, we're on the second floor. First we'll have a quorum check, which we are missing Steve Haltman. And I'm going to forego any committee updates and do walk-ins, so Raul can give us an update.
Well, right. Well, I am coming. I was going to give you guys an update.
Oh, okay.
Raul wanted to come in.
Give her update, and then I have a couple of things just to update you on as well. But
okay. Good.
Yep. So since our last meeting, we did have our meeting with Mass DOT. At the end of the month, we went out there. Dave came. Steve Halterman came from the commission. Members of Cedar Lake Association, Ann Goby, Tom Smola, town administrator. We met with Mass DOT. We got there. We gave a presentation, an overview of everything, what's been kind of done to date. So we kind of went through that in the beginning, which was really useful. There's a good amount of Mass
Hang
DOT.
on a second, Becky. Could we have tell them to go in that room or something?
So we went through that, kind of bring everybody up to speed, what's been done to date, what kind of still is outstanding. And then immediately after the presentation, Barry Lorraine from Mass DOT kind of went through and gave their plan to move forward to kind of address these things. So it was pretty specific. First thing is a site visit that's going to be coming up in a few weeks here to go back out and look at everything. So we've been they haven't been looking at some of the areas that we've identified that are issues. Kind of went through what they saw as short-term, kind of long-term items. They do have a plan. They're going to move forward this fall with I think it's area 1 we identified, which was the Rock Swale area. So we had a couple other things, but since that meeting, was notified by Bill from Mass DOT that they did go back out to the top of the highway there and did make some minor modifications up there. A few things. Yeah, yep, a few minor modifications, or that they're going to be planning to. I have to go back and look at my email now, but they were going to be working to address that a little bit more for temporary measures. So, but moving forward, I remember everything from that, but.
Well, one of the critical items that he brought up was the fact that he did agree to both a short-term and long-term plan.
Yes.
Which I thought was big, because that's something we've been fighting for since easily before October.
Yep.
And the chief of the department indicated that that's the way they were gonna go.
Yep.
Were both sides of the road discussed? Both
Yes.
sides?
Yes,
Yep.
both sides of the road were discussed, and that's part of the reason for the site visits, to go out and look at everything, and they'll have some of their staff out there to look at those so they can get a better understanding what's
And
going
also
on.
mentioned the follow-up in December.
right.
That's
Yes,
also
yep.
good, because what they agreed to was a follow-up the third week in December, so that we can talk not about what they're going to do, but that in combination with what they have already succeeded in doing. And I think they were very surprised to point out, because in the original presentation, you tried to point out, even with pictures, that the system that they had fixed early this spring had failed.
Mm-hmm.
And they glossed over that. At least 3 separate times during the meeting, they glossed over it. And at the end of the meeting, not Tom, but Barry went back and said, and now we understand that it failed, or part of it failed, the upper portion of it failed. Okay? They're giving a little. So it's with the promise of long-term and short-term agreements, or long and short-term plans, I think maybe there is some forward motion taking place. But I am an optimist.
We hope. For the record, Raul Ricard, 53 Beach Ave, Sea Lake Association. So I agree with the meeting. I thought the meeting was very productive. I think probably the first exceptional thing that our representative, Bill I can never say his last, McConnell actually did was to prep his bosses accordingly for that meeting, because there was no pushback on anything really that we presented, which was surprising. Certainly helps to have the senator and the state rep in the room with you, but there was no pushback. I was happy with the short-term plan, the long-term plan. the commitment. The follow-up date is critical, and that will be attended by Senator Goby and Representative Todd Smola. They already confirmed they will join again, so we just need to keep the pressure on them at this point in time. So a couple of points for you guys to know. Number one, you started to mention it, Becky, but I think the visit on the 31st, which has been scheduled, the site visit, we have to force them to look at every possible drainage area in that area. I don't care if it takes the whole day, because they skim over things very quickly and forget about certain parts. Do you have an old topology map of what that looks like from back then? Did Bill ever get you that? Remember he had said he had plans for how the drainage was done back in the,
No, I don't think he's ever
because we
submitted
see certain areas, but I'm sure there's things that we don't. Like last time when we walked all the way to the top of that drainage area that they're fixing near Matt Lincoln's property. So, I mean, I want to make sure they look at everything, not just skim over the surface. So I think as long as we're prepared to march them around and make sure they look at everything, I think that's fine. And I will be there. I don't expect anybody else from our association or any of the reps to be there, but as long as they're there, that's critical.
That's the 31st.
So, yeah, it's the 31st. And again, if there is a map that you can get or something that points to
That July or
the records there, that would be good. If there's not, we're just gonna have to, maybe we walk it in advance or something just to make sure, I don't know. But, just fuel for thought on that, okay? So that was one critical item. Second thing I wanted to make this committee aware of is that we're already taking our next contingency step forward if indeed MassDOT does not produce based on their timelines that they've given us. We have a preliminary fact-finding meeting with a legal firm in Boston, a firm by the name of,
not Copeland and Page,
McGregor and Laguerre, who works a lot on conservation
You
type
got
of.
McGregor on your team?
We are meeting with them on a private consult that has been set up by Lee Darren. And Suzanne and I are in Boston, not to take any action, but just to it's a free consult which will advise us as to what our rights are, what action we can take if indeed we do not get the action that we're looking for coming out of this plan. I'm not going to go into this with a rosy picture, hoping they're going to resolve everything and come back with everything fixed, either short-term or long-term, and we will not take any of those actions. You will know if we decide to take any of those actions, and you may need to be asked to be involved in those actions if we take them. I don't know the process. I'm not saying that process. I'm just saying we are taking those actions as a next step in case we have to down the road, okay? So I just want to keep that in full disclosure to this committee, just so you know our steps. We've been partners in this all along, so I want to let you know that as well, okay?
Lee could not have picked a finer advocate. Most of us have been to classes by that man.
Really?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
And he breathes fire, that dragon.
That's what Lee, who's our private counsel, tells us, and we will, only go down that route if we had. We've already got some use case studies of cases they've filed against MassDOT and other towns and areas, and I'm not looking to do that. That's not what I want to do. I want to get this thing fixed.
Yeah, but he also
I need
has got
action.
experience from like 40 years of working in the Commonwealth.
Yeah,
So he really has options that he can offer,
okay,
which is a really good thing.
yeah.
Lee ought to get 2 hugs for that one.
Well, we have that meeting actually tomorrow in Boston. Suzanne and I are there with with those counselors, and I'll update you at the next conservation meeting, just at a high level where it went. I'm not going to discuss it with MassDOT, and I appreciate you. I mean, it's on public record. They can find out if they want, but that's our steps in our next plan. I have to look ahead to success and failure, so that's where we're at. Okay? All right.
Site
Thank you.
visit, July 31st, 9:30. We been working with Bill from Mass DOT, and I'm scheduling a site visit after that with them at 173 Main Street. Still working to get all the parties involved with that. DEP is available and is going to come out for that too. So if anyone is available, I was going to bring
Again,
both
I'm
those
not
up.
available that day.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah.
And Becky, I would ask that you, the one that seemed to be rising to the challenge is Tom Emmerich in this project. I mean, Bill has been Bill right along. Please copy him on everything, and if we have to escalate, I think he's our next path. He committed to being out there on the 31st as well.
Clarity did?
Huh?
Bill Clarity did?
Bill Clarity will be there, but Tom Emmerich said he plans to visit on the 31st as well. And he's kind of the chief of engineering there, so I think and I asked him, I said, it'd be good for someone from MassDOT to have a fresh set of eyes to look at it firsthand. When I talked to him, and I said that to Barry Lorian when I saw him as well, who prior to that hadn't given me the time of day. So anyhow, that's kind of where we're at. Nothing else to report. Becky, if you do want to go out beforehand to look at anything, just let me know. I'm happy to join you in and around things. If not, I'll meet you there that morning. It's a pain. I was there a couple weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, and it's a pain to walk right now. There's so many weeds. And
I have one quick comment. I think based on the last site visit I did where we walked up the drainage swale
yeah,
quite a ways. So one of the things that we noticed was there was a blowout from, I think it was the first pipe that comes down from the turnpike. So it had undermined the channel. And right there was the end of a street and almost no trees that would have to come down in order to get heavy equipment right to that spot. It was 25 feet from the end of the street, so incredibly easy access. One of the things I'd like to point out is if they could deal with, stopping things at that point and spreading it out and, not having that channel that goes all the way to the lake, that would be the ideal spot to
Flattens out
deal
there
with it.
too, and I think that is their property, so they could do like those tiered basins like we see on the other side. We did bring that up when we were out there.
yeah, and they did commit at the short term. You see, kind of glossed over the channel on the north side that I complained that it was bad, and it was one of the critical, and he kind of said, we'll look at that when we go out. But what he committed to doing is looking at any area that could be in the short term repaired or shored up or whatever the word is to do that short of the long-term plan.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's important we visit all those areas, and maybe it's just some added trap rock they put in a certain area. Maybe it's something temporary they put there. I think we should be thinking along that line and not trying to stretch out the scope, as Bill accuses me all the time of. But, and what's the short term, okay? And commit to the short term, and then we need to get that back in a commitment from them when they're gonna do it, okay?
Right.
Then the long term becomes the long term.
Right.
And I think the long term, they promise a narrative to us by somewhere in the fall. My expectation is we'll have that narrative of the long-term plan before we meet in December, so that we can all review it, whether you'll have a chance to discuss it with MassDOT if he's out here for some reason beforehand, I don't know, but hopefully that's there. And I'm going to lean on Ann Goby and Todd Smola to make sure, along with our town administrator, to make sure that they're working with MassDOT on the budgetary process to get that long-term approved. He did not commit to 2020 doing the work. It was his hope. But as long as it's short-term, we're going to hold this for a couple of years. I mean, if it committed to be done in 2021, okay, at least a commitment's there, and that's what we're looking for, okay? One last thing to be aware of, Matt Lincoln has actually, I think, sold his property. It was up for sale. My wife's a realtor, and she thinks it's already got an offer on it. So
Yeah,
I've
it's
asked
showing
him
up
to
on the
let me know who is purchasing it, and we're going to need to bring that person up to speed because
Yeah.
you're going to need access through there.
Yeah, is it gonna make a difference for access?
I don't know. It depends on the person, right? I mean, the person could say, no, you're not going to rip my whole lawn. Matt had said to me, you can take whatever you want across my property as long as the lawn is in the same shape it was after you do everything you do. And he's actually said you can walk through my property, go through my property anytime to survey and look without asking, but if you're going to bring equipment, let me know.
Is he on the
You
east
gotta-
side of the lake or the west side of the lake?
He's on the south side of the
South.
lake,
South?
right near he's near that rock swale that was approved last time. That runs right along the side of his property. Not his it's MassDOT property, but it runs right alongside. So I looked at it. You might be able to get in from the upper part of the road with heavy equipment, but I don't think very easily unless you cut a lot of trees down. So you should take a look at it on the short term and make sure you know what MassDOT's going to do there when that time comes. Matt has assured me that he'll get me in contact with his realtor and the new owner once that is finalized, but I'm sure it's not finalized yet. And I'm happy to meet with them and talk about what has happened and where it's going. He actually disclosed it in his purchase, his not purchase sale agreement, but it disclosed it as a project that's ongoing, impacting his property in his for sale letter. So he was very good about it. Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Any other questions? You're supposed to ask me. No.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. No problem.
Thanks.
See ya.
Have a good weekend.
I will.
In the interest of saving time, the Sturbridge Conservation Commission will hold all public hearings tonight for work within a wetland, water body, or resource area, and/or within the 200-foot buffer zone to a wetland, water body, or resource area, in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and associated regulations, and the Town of Sturbridge Wetland Bylaws and associated regulations. We will not be reading the newspaper ad. Prior to opening the first hearing for each project, the applicant is to submit proof of notification to abutters within 200 feet of the subject property line and proof of legal newspaper advertisement. These items are not submitted, the public hearing will not open. Additionally, prior to the start of each public hearing, we will announce the location of the project, the applicant, and the applicant's representative. If any of the visitors have not legibly signed in yet, please do. Also, if any visitors are recording this meeting, please let us know. Thank you.
All right, notice of intent, DEP file number 300-1035 for 70 Westwood Drive, construction of a single-family house and associated site work. Wages, J, represented by Jalbert Engineering.
Good evening, Leonard Jalbert from Jalbert Engineering. Before we start, I'd like to submit for the record a certified abutters list, certified mailing, legal notice in the paper, and the DEP file number for the project.
Becky, do you have any clickers?
There's only a few.
There's one down there.
There's one?
I need more batteries. The other one died, so this has a laser right here.
Okay.
So we can share it. And they have one down there too, so Lenny has one.
Thanks. We hit the big one today, Steve.
Yeah, right.
Steve, any more?
No, I'm good.
The project itself is actually located at number 70 Westwood Drive in the town of Sturbridge. If you're going down Westwood Drive, just before the lake, there's a sharp curve going to your left at the bottom there, parallel with the lake. This here is right at the curve of the road right there at 70 Westwood Drive. The lot itself is quite a large lot. It's got roughly 1.15 acres, which, because of itself, is quite unique relative to the average lot, where I've done many of them at the lake about 5,000 square feet, let alone 50,000 square feet. So what it is here is a construction of a single-family home. The house itself will be about 70-some-odd feet from the lake, where there's a deck in the front of the property, which puts it about 60 feet from the lake itself. The house itself is basically on top of the knoll in the center of the lot. It's been staked. The roadway itself has been staked. The location off of the Westwood Road is there's going to be water, sewer connection, which will run from there to the house. And then the house itself will have a private well system. What it is, if you go down Westwood Drive, once you hit the first knoll going into at Westwood Circle is basically the end of the water line. From there all the way to this end, it's private well system. So it's serviced by a private well and a septic system. Normally, if you had the private public well and a septic system, the zoning in that area would be allowed to be 1/2 acre, but because of no private well, it has to go to 3/4 of an acre. So there is a difference. The road itself, or access to the lot itself, goes from Westwood Drive in an easterly direction. It basically starts where the trailhead is on Westwood Drive, which runs basically in an easterly direction, and then bears northeasterly where there's some stakes down there, and then circles around the house, and then cuts back into the lot basically located at the northeasterly corner of the property itself. On the northeasterly corner, which is basically near the water, there's an existing shed that's been placed there for many years, and there's also an existing boat dock, which is located in that area. As far as anything taking place within the existing shed area and the existing boat dock area, there will be no activity whatsoever. That all activity is going at least 60 feet from the lake itself. There's a barrier line there. If you were out there, that line right there on the 60-foot mark basically is flagged from there to the trailhead at the most northerly section of where the house is. The excavation on the property, there will be quite a bit of excavation in the property itself, where the house will be built right on top of the knoll. In the process of doing that, it's going to be approximately 300 yards of material that will be taken off of the site. And this area would account to approximately 20 truckloads going off of Woodside Drive away from the site. All the material on the site is Class 1 material, which is basically sand and gravel. It's very granular. So it's taking it off of there would pose really no problem. As far as the percolation and everything going through there, except any incumbents upon a public system for sewer or anything is negated on the fact that the house itself will be serviced by town sewer. Even if it wasn't serviced by town sewer, the soil itself would be more than comparable to allow for disposal. Under the state regulations, if you were doing this, it would accommodate approximately a 5-bedroom home on the site itself, where the site itself right now, I think is, let's see, I think it's going to be a 3-bedroom home. So it's still staying within the nitrogen loading criteria. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you.
Thank you, Lenny. Do you want me to put up the photos? We did have a site visit out there. Dave didn't get to walk it, so we can just go through those so that way. Go through. So this one's the top of the hill looking down towards the lake. Let's see. Same thing. Top of the hill looking down towards the lake. You can see the shed down there, platform, open area. It's also the hill looking down, and I think, it's hard to see this pink flag here. I believe that was the limit of work line going down the slope. Shed area, dock, platform. So this is looking back up the slope. And that's it. I've already gone through them. So I know you didn't get to walk down there, so I figured to show you. So, couple comments. One, that the filing should account for the dock that was put in. So there was a request for determination for applicability for the shed. that came through, that was approved to have the shed down there at the time. I think the dock was there, but it wasn't permitted at that time, but that can be included for this filing. It does require the approvals for there. So if that's a temporary dock, then you can also go to Board of Selectmen through because it's a great pond, so it's subject to Chapter 91. But if it's a permanent structure, you have to go to DEP for that. Separately, if it's temporary, you go to the Board of Selectmen for that approval, because it is a public water body. It's not private land. So it's a pretty simple process, but you should get that for the dock. He did show it on the plan. In addition to that, we should just have the area of the bank that's been opened up on there too. You are allowed, under the wetland protection regs, about 10% of your bank. If you can show that it's not significant to wildlife habitat, they'll give you more. But it looks like you probably have about that distance, so we should just add that on there and account for that in the notice of intent, so that way we can permit that and have those impact calculations on there. I think that what they have there, we didn't measure it, but it probably would be about that 20 feet or so. Let's see. We noted the sandbags kind of walking down in the bank. So another option, I mean, that kind of continued use on the bank and kind of degraded and then have some erosion issues. One thing we did on another project is they had a removable dock and they had steps kind of come off of the dock, and it kind of helped. They're having the same issue in the bank. So that's something, remember we did that for Brochu? That could be something, or, I mean, I think you could still get permanent steps in there. It might be something you want to consider and the commission consider for that use on the bank there, so it's.
I don't know if I need to comment who I am, but Josh Wages, so I'm the owner of the property, 70 Westwood Drive. So apologies for maybe just some previous history. So obviously we are very interested in working and trying to be able to, I guess, further address the 17-foot or 20-foot embankment there. So kind of the focus was maybe to address the property at the moment, and then we definitely do want to revisit the commission and basically ask for suggestions on how to be able to address that drop.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, you can do it now because you have the notice of intent in front of you, so it can be included for this file number, and you have to get a permit issued for those things.
Yep.
So it's just something that you already have it in front of us. You can kind of roll it onto that. If you
Okay.
want to do that now, doesn't mean you have to put it in place now.
Yep.
Your permit's valid for 3
At
years.
least it's just
or-
part of that.
Exactly, you don't have to go
I'll
through
probably
this
talk
process
to the engineering firm and so forth.
Okay.
Just, I don't want to muddy the waters.
Yeah, no,
by
that's
all means,
fine.
But if need be, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's just to kind of give them information and recommendations, so. So with that, one thing I'd recommend that you consider is maybe thinking about additional uses within that 50-foot buffer zone. So you have an understanding, they do have that walkway that's down there, it's pretty steep. Continued use of that could result in some additional erosion. Another project, we let them put stairs in going down to help, because so he wouldn't have that erosion issue. So that's something that could be an option too, that would be a benefit with, that continued use too, so.
Yes, please.
Okay, so yeah, you guys can talk about that. And Lenny did the plan for the other project, so it's something that could, with that long-term use, be a benefit for everybody, so especially the lake too. Then I guess I just recommend that the commission, look at and ask kind of what alternative analysis could be for the removal of the hillside, what you guys have looked at, how you could avoid, removing the 300 yards of material on the top of the hill. It's part of our process to kind of go through what alternatives are available before permitting projects. So just kind of go over that process. And then one thing I noted was that number 72, house number 72, the north, that went through permitting about 2010. That was about 130 feet back, so I didn't know if you remembered kind of that going through the process or whatnot, so that one was set back a little bit. Another thing, once the project is permitted, because it is very steep there, we'd have to really look at some additional protective measures while the project is going on to make sure we don't result in impacts, and really look at phasing and stabilization throughout the project. So that's something that we work out in the end, so. Okay.
David? Go back to you, Eric.
I'm gonna need a lot of details relative to topping the hill to put a house on it. 3,000 cubic yards of material
I didn't
being,
say three, did I say it's 300?
300.
300 cubic yards. That's still topping the hill to put a house on it.
Basically what it is, if you went down there and looked at it.
I did,
the hill-
several times.
Okay, the hill actually is crowned at one peak where the house is going.
Remember that this is the second plan for that same site.
Please?
Green Hill Engineering had a plan about 10, 12 years ago to do almost exactly the same thing. Top the hill, put a house on it, and then run stairs down to the water.
Okay, I'm not aware of that. Okay,
So we've been on the site several times, honey.
okay.
It doesn't appear to me that it's a knoll. It's far more than a knoll, and 3,300 cubic yards is a lot of soil removal and not damaging any of that huge amount of tree cover, which is all habitat. That's my disturbance.
Yeah, I agree. I think I was a little shocked at the aggressiveness of the excavation at that site. I mean, basically, what we're talking about here is you have an elevation of 120 feet here, and you're going down to 110 feet. So you're lopping off 10 feet by, hundreds of feet of hilltop to construct the house. So I guess I'd just be interested in what other alternatives there are for doing this without doing such aggressive, because, I mean, the main issue with this is that this bank is so steep down to the lake, and taking that much of the hill off, that close to the lake, right up to the 50-foot, I'm concerned about that.
And it's well within the 100-foot buffer zone.
Right. And this would fall within the town's, 8% slope.
Well, what really happens here is that, what you're saying, if we start moving the building in a westerly direction from the top of the knoll to the closer to Woodside Circle, then his view and the ambiance of the whole site is negated for him as an individual who owns the lot. He couldn't see over that area. That's what we did right there, is to take it down, level it there, so he would at least be able to enjoy the lake and the ambiance of the building itself on that particular lot. Outside of that, he couldn't do it. If I move the house in a westerly direction, what would happen? It'd be like putting it into a hole, and it is a hole.
Mm-hmm.
Lenny, what about,
If you go from, say, the top of the hill down, say you're using the top of the hill, which is, say, around one maybe even 118, and then you go down to the lower area near the Woodside Circle, you're down to about 100. You're talking a 20-foot difference in elevation between the house going into Woodside Circle.
Right.
Which means that even if he had a two-story house down there, he still couldn't see over the hill.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
It-
That's help me with this, because I understand what you're saying. Listen to what I'm gonna say. First of all, if this is the house here, right?
that's the drive.
No,
That's the driveway.
That's the driveway. This is, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is
Right.
the house here, this is the deck here, right?
Yep.
Okay. You are not going to be able to see the water today if you don't cut trees. I stood there on the hill, right there, and, I'm really short, so I can tell you that if you just knock it down a little bit, you're still gonna wanna clear to the water for your view.
We laid this area there, if you look at the limit of work area, we had no intentions of clearing between there and the lake.
Okay. This pathway here, that was executed without a permit, right?
that was existing from the property when it was
Yeah.
purchased.
And that's in place. Now, so the issue here is how close and how much, if you're gonna put you say you have, stairs going down here, Lenny, right?
Where?
There are no stairs going down here? What were
We
you
have
talking-
no
I made a
stairs.
suggestion that stairs could,
What we had basically is the existing pedestrian path that runs down there in a southeasterly direction to be left natural and not put in any stairs in that area.
This path here?
Where, up, right there, that path right there, we were not going to change that path.
No, you're not gonna change that path, but it's not gonna become the primary, way to get to the water. I assume from almost 100, that this is gonna be the way to get to the water.
Actually,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
the layout of the property, I apologize, is that it was the intent to be able to have underneath the deck a walkout basement in order to be able to access the property, which is very near
Yeah.
the existing pathway. And the existing pathway, as mentioned, it was there from the time of the purchase of the property, and since the time that we've been with the property, no trees have been disturbed, no items have been damaged. The only thing that really has occurred is we have removed the leaves from the
Isn't that
trailway.
a serious distance, I mean elevation difference?
It's fairly substantial, yes, but,
So you're gonna have to put,
25 feet.
yeah,
Well,
I mean, from the lakefront to that point, it's a decent hill.
it's roughly 14, roughly, let's see, it's 76.
76 to 100 and,
So
to
basically,
102.
no, in that area, in the back of the house is basically around 92 or something. So it'd be roughly 16-foot drop between there to the water.
Another point, Lenny, is he's given you is that he's gonna have a walkout under the deck,
Correct.
and he's not gonna hill down to put the house in lower.
Correct.
So there, you could move the whole thing back and not have a walkout. Assuming the same elevation. Because he's got a walkout under the deck, which means that it's dropping off at that point.
He's excavating down to the bottom of the wall, basically. Yeah, the floor elevation in the building itself would be somewhere around 100.
Yeah.
So what's happening, if you look at the grades that we have, which is basically adjacent to that deck area, that grade next to the deck itself would be at a elevation 100.
is it possible to, have you looked at maybe shifting to the north a little bit and you're avoiding the top of the hill, so it would be less excavation? Probably still could have a walkout over there and still be outside of the setbacks. Is that something that, you know, it still would be the same distance from the lake, but maybe you could avoid the removal of the whole hillside there, and that could be kind of good, not compromise, but you know what I mean, he can get what he wants and there's less disturbance. It's not as
Right.
steep on that side too. I don't know if that's an option that's been looked at.
Can I just ask what the benefit of that would be, like wetland speaking, what is the benefit of doing that versus what you guys are, and what's the impact or the benefit of pulling it back versus leaving it where it is? I'm just confused as to, like, it's, yes, we're talking about taking off a hill, I'm just wondering what's the benefit specifically to that property of leaving that there versus removing it? I just don't understand that. Is there a benefit to moving it?
Well, you don't remove the whole hillside. You could probably-
What's the
It's less
negative
impact.
impact?
We're talking
It's
about
less
less
impactful, I get that, but is
Right,
there
and
an
the-
environmental
Right,
impact
and I
other
think
than
there's
just moving out?
the short-term kind of impact, and then there's the long-term use, I think, too, that has the impact there with the ability for erosion, et cetera, as well. So, I mean, the suggestion of moving it would be less, I think, impact overall, so.
and presumably we would not lose as many trees. I mean, that's what I'm concerned about, is that, you know, as Ed said, if you're standing there, because of this incredibly steep hill, you're basically staring into the tops of trees from where they're proposing to put the house. So if their goal is to be able to see the lake and view the lake, that's what is eventually going to happen with this, is that more trees are going to be removed.
Jim?
I will say, just,
Go ahead.
sorry, my intent is not to disturb the front of the property, and I know during my previous interactions with the Conservation Department that, you know, it's not my desire to disrupt that frontage. You know, obviously, our main intent of the placement of the house is obviously for usability, obviously the smaller kids, and just be able to have access into the property as well too from the lake. It is a rather challenging terrain that we are dealing with, and you know, we just basically want to be able to not only see the children while they're also playing down by the water. So, you know, being placed moving the house back, we feel kind of jeopardizes that feasibility as well too, of having full accountability. So I just also want to, I guess, kind of reiterate though that, you know, it's not really my intent or my desire at all to be able to disrupt any of the trees that are freestanding within the property itself up in the front. And even to, you know, I'm willing to be able to help negotiate either the traverse of the driveway or otherwise. You know, there are some pretty substantial trees on the property itself. I'd be more than happy and really would love to keep those as much as possible. But you know, I haven't talked to a developer or a contractor to get the specifics. This is my first time building a house, so my experience in that arena is limited. But I'm definitely open and willing to, you know, take some modifications if need be. I mean, obviously with proper guidance from engineering as well too. But so I just kind of wanted to make that point.
Well, one thing I notice is that, you know, the top of the hill is here, and really the bulk of the house is over here. So we already have the house removed from the top of the hill considerably, but you're still removing all of this material to basically make this, you know, I guess a lawn here. You know, if there's some way that this could be, that we didn't have to take out this entire hill, because you're removing all those trees and you're working very close to the lake, you know. I don't know.
I mean, and that could just be
Yeah.
maybe a loss of this, you know, shifting the driveway over.
Exactly.
Maybe
Follow
that's something.
Follow the contours as they exist. You don't have a straight driveway, but maybe have a slightly curved driveway, and, you know.
If we start curving the driveway, running in a northerly direction over there, we're gonna change the flowage pattern of that whole northwesterly corner of the lot and start pushing the water towards the adjacent property, which I would not recommend.
But you said it was all sand and gravel.
It is, but water runs downhill.
What?
I said water runs downhill.
Yeah, no, but it
Okay,
goes down into the ground.
and then right now, when you start moving the building in a westerly direction, you know, it doesn't take much to go from the corner of that building down to, you know, near the northwesterly corner, and then you're down there at about 96 feet. So you're talking there that just dropping it from that contour there, you're down maybe 6 to 8 feet lower in the westerly corner than you would be. So then it keeps bringing the building down lower and lower and lower. You have to bring it up for the foundation. It becomes regressive relative to any type of drainage that's on the property to stay
What about the
within it.
issue of filling behind the knoll?
Building what?
Filling behind the knoll, as you're coming in, it drops down and then comes back up again.
We're
You
filling.
figured when you topped the hill, you were gonna flatten it.
Well, basically, we're flattening the hill, basically, in that area, part of the driveway, you know, coming in. The elevation of the building, if you look at it, basically on the westerly side, with the basement at 100 feet, If you look near the end right there, you'll find that the most northwesterly corner of the house, the elevation right there is 100 feet. So the basement floor would be basically on grade on the westerly side and the easterly side. And it blends in with the lot itself. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It's, you know, it's there. You know?
Don't, that's not blending, that's blasting. I mean,
No,
you're
it's not
blending.
blasting. You don't blast gravel.
Well, I mean, you know, I know you don't have to blast, but
Right.
my point is, it's not blending when you're taking down that, you're taking, you know, 300 truckloads of,
300 yards.
300 yards of
Right, which way?
sand and gravel out of there.
Right. Okay, I agree.
What do you, gentlemen? Would you like to see some alternative plans to this?
Definitely alternative analysis.
Yeah.
I think,
With the agenda I see on for tonight's meeting, I
Yeah.
respectfully request a continuance at this time to show
let's just
you
make
and
sure we
alter
tell
that.
you why we're continuing it before, so you have something to go back with.
Well, I know why. Okay, but you can tell me if you want to
But I
reiterate,
think,
it's
that- I
fine.
think some of the things that concern me is that you're really, you're truly giving me a conflict. You know, you're saying, you want to be able to see the kids on the beach, but you're not going to cut the trees in front. One of those things is going away. The stairs, I want to see a defined, what you're going to do as far as getting to the lake and how you're going to use the lake. You're ignoring that as an issue now, build and then come back, and that's really not feasible in this case, from my point of view. I think you should look at pushing it back further. A plan that gets just what you're asking for, but is a little further back from the lake. We're responsible for protecting 100 through the state and 200 through the town. And those are things that I would consider. I don't know.
I absolutely agree. And the other thing is, I mean, right now, the dock and that, you mentioned the deck here, or the platform.
Yeah.
Neither, and this trail, none of those things are currently permitted. So I think either you have to open file for a permit for those now, because it's not in compliance right now, or just add it to this NOI, which I think makes the most
I think
sense.
the most sense is to put it on this
Right.
NOI, so that when we have a plan, we have a plan with a complete plan.
Right.
It's up to you, Mr. Jalbert.
Okay.
As stated, I'd ask for a continuance.
All in favor of a continuance? Thanks, Lenny.
Thank you.
We'll get there.
I knew it wasn't gonna be a stamp at all, so that's, no worries at all.
I think it's just important too to show that alternative analysis
Great
process.
site,
Absolutely.
you know.
Yeah. No, and truthfully, our interests are in the same place, so I want to make sure that's known.
All right, thank you.
We'll set up a meeting with you and we'll discuss it,
Sure.
okay? Thank you.
Okay, we are now to 6:30, which is canceled?
Nope.
No, I'm sorry. Notice of intent, DEP file number 300-1036, 4 Regent Lane, construction of a single-family house and associated site work. Baltazar R., represented by Jalbert Engineering.
Okay, before I get started, Jalbert Engineering, I'd like to submit the legal notice, a copy of the certified mail receipts, copy of the certified abutters list, and the DEP file number, which you have.
This site might need some of your fill.
please?
So this site might need some of their fill.
You take it gratuitously, yes. Do you want me to proceed? You want
Sure,
you
go ahead.
Okay. Okay, what I want to do is to go through, this is Balthazar, which is construction of a single-family residential home off of Regip Lane. The lot itself is serviced with town water and town sewer. The access to the town water and town sewer were flagged on the property itself where they were accessing into the property. The corners of the property of the building itself were actually flagged, so you would see where it's being built. And the property lines, basically, on the most southerly side were flagged. And there's a transformer pad, basically, in I can't see this. Right in this area here, so that's the property corner right at there. This side right here is coming down through here. The house next door, if you look in the middle of their lawn, there's a monument out there, and this here is their property line, which this here is all grass right now from this abutting property. That line there was flagged, and then the property lines down below were flagged also. The growth on the property is so thick that I don't know if you even found them. If you
Saw a
did,
flag down there.
the
So
unfortunate.
you just tied a stone to it and threw it down there, right?
Yeah, no, you know, the thing is, I thank God for the electronic equipment, because outside of that, I couldn't get my way back. No, the lot itself hasn't been built on, and they're planning to build on it right now, and the purpose is that what is requiring here is a roughly 18 to 19 feet of fill where that house is going. They want to put the house basically even with the road.
Oh, wow.
I'm serious.
There's a reason it hasn't been built on in the past, Lenny.
Well, 18 and 19, well, what's going to happen is that the house foundation itself is going to have to be placed on helical pads and built and then filled in around this thing.
Wow.
Okay, and basically the slope that you're looking at this place is around this building right in here is basically a one-on-one slope, and that's why that we were putting it in with riprap to stabilize it. And we would put in, you know, plantings within the riprap itself. However, the slope itself would have to have at least quite a bit of armoring in it, other than vegetation, unless you have strong root systems. No, so it does. It's going to require armoring coming right around here with a type of deciduous vegetation. So it's a real tough lot. It's a tight lot. I mean, we're staying, you know, basically within the parameters of the lot itself, but the only way we can do it is with the one-on-one slope. And I talked to the guy 100 times about the house could be lowered another 15 feet, which would make things so much simpler. And he says, no, I want it on road grade. He's emphatic about it, which,
Good Lord.
it's different, okay? So that's basically what it is. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer it. It's, I
I'll
don't know what to
bet
say.
you can't. I'll bet you can't.
Oh, I can't.
You should have had a ski tow rope going down to the bottom, Lenny. It would help you back up that sucker.
Well, hey, the woman next door asked me what I thought, and I said, I wouldn't buy it if you gave it to me.
Wow.
Lenny, let me ask you a question.
Yeah,
Jumping, if if you knock that down 15 feet, just 15 feet, how much closer, how much further out of the wetland could you go? Out of the buffer zone?
Well, unfortunately, I would stay basically the house where it is right now, and I would just change the slope from a two-on-one to a one,
Yeah.
from a one-on-one to a
How much-
two-on-one.
yeah,
I
the
would
house would stay the
basically
same, but-
keep the limits the same.
But
I wouldn't want to lower the house 10 or 15 feet and stay with the one-on-one, which would draw the slope in, because I'm still ending up with the same condition of the lot, you know. This way here, if you lower the slope and everything, you're lowering the runoff, you're lowering all the impact of the site itself by going with the two-on-one versus the one-on-one.
But I'm trying to get you out of the, I'm trying to get you out of the 50 foot and out of the 100. Or not out of it, but trying to move.
But wouldn't the limit of work
Yeah,
expand
move-
with the
I'm
2
trying
to
to
1
move the
though?
limit of work.
But would if you needed a 2 to 1 slope, I know it would be lower, but would that expand further? Because it's not as.
Not if he drops the house
Not if he
15
drops it.
feet, yeah.
Yeah.
It would, but it would roughly stay the same, so we wouldn't gain anything. I mean, it seems like the cost of, like, putting an extra story, if the, you know, concern is not having the view from the top, from that elevation, you could just add another story, which would be a lot cheaper than putting this thing on the special pilings and bringing in 400 truckloads of fill.
The site work alone, just on the building structure itself, forget anything else, would be in the 40 to 50 range.
Right.
You know, just
Yeah.
the foundation. Okay, so it's an extremely expensive lot to develop.
Yeah.
But I think, Ed, we have, besides the combination of the 50 and 100 buffer zone, we also have that 8% slope bylaw. Good Lord, if this doesn't violate that, nothing does. And that work would be filling within that 8% slope bylaw. How do we cross that threshold?
Well, the 8% slope bylaw is just that it has to go through review.
Right.
Right, as
Within
we're
the
doing
500
right now.
foot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess my biggest concern is when Lenny said they have to fill this with riprap. When we were out on the site, and I was envisioning this, and I was assuming that they were gonna, because you couldn't possibly mow that this was all gonna be natural, you know, plantings, natural, yeah. So that would be my concern. I would like to see that, as opposed to, you know, a giant
What would you like to see?
mountain of riprap.
Oh,
This,
yeah.
this just be, you know, natural vegetation,
Yep.
so that they're not, I don't know.
If you're going with natural vegetation, I would recommend a minimum slope of 2 to 1.
Right.
You know,
Lenny,
that's even tight.
could you do a 2 to 1 slope on this? I know it would push it further into the buffer zone, but what would you be looking at, do you think, for a 2 to 1 with that amount of fill? How far beyond the
12,
limit of
you're
work?
talking 24, you're talking, if we put a 2-on-1, we're talking, it'd be encroaching upon the 50-foot limit line.
Yeah, you'd be right on top of it.
I said encroach right on it, right.
Right, you probably would be able to do it
Um,
inside there anyways,
yeah.
the property boundary.
Well, the thing is, what happens if, you know, the bottom part of this thing, if we say the westerly portion, which is basically this portion right in here, you could do it, but when you start coming over here, you can't do it because now you're going right on the abutter's property.
Yep.
I mean, basically, even at the one-on-one in here, you know, you're only, you know, you're only about 8 feet from the property line at that, you know, at that particular point right in here. So, I mean, we couldn't change the slope, it still has to be on the one-on-one.
But you can change the slope if you lower the elevation of the
Well,
house.
obviously, if we cut the thing, if we lowered the house, yes, you could.
Right.
You could change the slope from one-on-one to two-on-one.
Right.
So, but you'd still, your limit of your fill would still have to be basically on the same line.
Right.
How
But
how about looking at this differently, though? How about going back to Lenny's original proposal? If all of the fill is brought in, and the slopes remain about the same, and we go back to your planting plan with not natural vegetation that Stephen was suggesting, but rather actual shrubs that are gonna develop root systems, what you have there is a piece of property that was hit by the tornado really harshly. And I'm not convinced that the native vegetation in any kind of severe, wet series of storms is going to hold that property together. You're going to have all kinds of erosion take place over time with just weeds and grasses. But if you put in things that are going to develop really serious root structures, it's going to help to hold the soil fabric together. And that's part of what you're going to need on one slope, Lenny.
Well,
And that was part of the first part of your program.
right, and the reason I elected it is, now that you talk about the soils, but the actual soils in that area are actually, if you use a soil legend, it's a class 307E, which is basically a sandy loam, okay?
So that'd be perfect for shrub growth.
Which would work, yes.
You could get really good, deep root structures that way.
Correct. Now, but the thing is, what happens is that the original material on the site, okay, which is below that, which is, say, basically 18 feet below, is that, I'm serious.
Yeah, that's not gonna help here.
So, but I had to figure out how I can stabilize this to put the house on too, okay? But the thing is, what happens is that the material we're bringing in
Step back.
is gonna negate anything that's underneath it because we're so
Right.
high
I think
above it.
that's the road setback line.
But
right
one of
there.
the things that it would do is it would help to stabilize the entire site.
Correct.
That, even at the present time, is not necessarily that stable.
Well,
We
right-
may be able to improve the environmental situation.
Okay, right now, we're talking basically, which is 89 is, so it's you're talking roughly right now is about 13% grade on the cross gradient of the property right now. Okay, if you went, say, if you went from right over here in this area here down to this area here, right now that slope's roughly 13%. So it's not exactly a level area.
No, but remember, one of the interests of the act is protection of wildlife habitat.
Right.
And at the present time, the only wildlife habitat that you have there is eagles that fly over the top, going to Hobbs Brook to feed.
Right.
Because everybody else is going to avoid it, there's nothing for them to eat. But if you put in shrubs, it's going to help that area.
Yeah, we could put in the shrubs, there's no question about it. I agree with that. We could
And it would hold the
vegetate.
soils.
Correct, which we could vegetate. That's why I said we put in the riprap and then, the shrubs going in between.
It's just,
What about moving it closer to the road?
They can't because of the setback, I
can't.
think.
No, it's over the 30-foot
No.
setback now.
The setback line hits right at the corner
there.
there, I think. That red
Right
dashed
on.
line.
Oh, I can't.
Is that right, Lenny?
What happens,
yeah, I think.
what
that's it.
happens is our setback line for the building on that, on this side here. Oops, let's see if I could, damn, it should be.
It's right here.
Okay, right
Lenny.
here, on this
Right.
side right here, there's the property line right there, okay? And if you look at the corner of this building, there's the setback line right there that goes right up through. So the building actually is as far forward as it can possibly go without being within the setback requirements.
Unless you move it to the left and up and down.
Well, yeah, well, then if I start moving it to the left, then the slope requirement would be going on to the abutting property. I've
Yeah.
only got 8 feet to play with, so that's, it's,
But you could drop the height of the building.
or if I drop the height,
And
of
then- and
the-
then you-
if I drop the height of the building, yes, I could,
You could do that
right. I could move the house slightly to the left, there's no question,
and go up a little bit and down a little bit,
right, which we could.
you know?
And what would that do?
The
That
thing,
would be more within,
well, the thing is though, is we're hitting the 100-foot buffer right there
Right there.
as it is.
yeah.
So moving the house this way isn't gonna buy us anything
Right.
with the distance from the
absolutely right.
wetland. So I think I'm okay with the location of the house, but I just think the house should be lowered enough so that we could make a slope here such that we can have good natural vegetation. And I think it makes the whole thing more stable. So I would like to see an alternative.
The thing is, what happens, you got a requirement in the town of Sturbridge too, that the driveway can be a maximum of 8% slope,
Right.
okay?
Well,
Which,
Well,
the thing is, if I lower the house, say, let's say, if I lowered the house, let's say, I don't know, let's say 5 feet, just for the sake of discussion, then I'd be beyond the 8% slope for the house.
well, whatever it is, Lenny, why don't you give us a proposal that includes it? We don't need to do that for you. You make it legal and bring it back and lower it by that amount.
Right now, the driveway itself, accessibility, and the setback is legal.
I know, but it's flat. And we can do a better job with the wetland by lowering it a little bit.
Is the garage under the house, Lenny?
I could maybe, no, the garage is right up on the top of the wall, basically. The garage is right at that level, it's right there about 95 feet.
And the house goes down? That's like the second story of the house?
So, you figure 95 feet from here, this point right here to the road itself, which is roughly 60 feet, and 60 feet at 8% is 4.8. Okay, which, it's right there now, at the 8%. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, the building itself right now, as far as setback is concerned, is correct. As far as the driveway accessibility is correct. And then if we switch the building over, the only way we could do it, we'd have to go back to,
We're gonna do that.
huh?
We're not gonna do that. We already decided that. Switching the building over doesn't give us any advantage.
Yeah, right. So, we're basically stuck with the way it is right now.
But Lenny, so let me understand this. Is the elevation of the foundation the same all the way around? So in other words,
Correct. The top of the foundation, okay, the top of the foundation is 95.00.
but, so what would happen if the back part of the house was at, it was stepped basically? So you had, a foundation at one elevation up here and then, I don't want to redesign this for you, but I'm just wondering if you could take advantage of the steepness of that hill by having,
The garage right now, if you take this area right here, where the garage is, okay, that elevation right there has to be basically to have the correct access from the road to here, is which we have it right now. The elevation of the garage is 94.5.
right,
Which is 6 inches below the elevation of the house, which has to be by law, okay?
Ah,
So
okay.
my option here, I have no options.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. It's, I just don't know what to say. It's gotta be that way.
Any further discussion? Anybody in the audience like to speak on this? Come on. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing? Are we looking for anything else?
Without a planting plan?
You want a planting plan?
Yeah, again, my biggest concern is stabilizing that and,
All right, Lenny,
yeah.
Please,
would you like a continuation to bring back a planting plan?
so move.
I don't hear anything else. Any
I
other?
was just gonna add to maybe with the stormwater management system
Stormwater
for the
management, too.
driveway,
Yeah.
Maybe, they should have some type of operation maintenance plan, what they need to do yearly or bi-yearly, just a Word document outlining what
Yep.
type of maintenance they need to do in the future, and that we can add that into the orders of conditions.
So it looks like you have a detention area here, Lenny?
Right,
Yeah.
That's to deal with the runoff from,
there's a detention there. Basically, you've got, there's a gutter system right here at the end of the driveway here. It
Yep.
goes into that, and then the roof drainage off the house goes into that.
Is that a rain garden or a detention basin?
It's right here.
yeah.
It's a detention area itself.
So, right, I mean, if they need to go in every couple of years and mow or clean sediment out, something like that just outlines what their responsibilities are,
Okay.
so it functions
Okay,
correctly. And then, right, if you're looking for a planting plan outside of the chain link fence, maybe it's just clearly denoted in the plan that that area and what type of, if any type of maintenance activities would be allowed out there, if that's gonna be left to naturally revegetate.
Yep.
All right. All in favor? Continuation?
as I get older, the lots get harder.
No kidding. No, the challenges get better for you, Lenny.
That's funny. All right, we are now on to,
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Lenny.
Good night, Lenny.
Have a good weekend, Lenny.
7 o'clock now?
Yep.
7:12.
Yeah, well, we'll just say that, right, the 645 request for determination of applicability, 130 and 140 Fisk Hill Road. They've asked for a continuation to our August 20th meeting. They're still doing some investigation of that pond out there to see if there's a fish population in there. And they're also looking at doing some perk testing and coming up with some subdivision proposal ideas to kind of come back with, looking at that site, so.
Good. Do we need to vote on that, or we just,
What? No.
they continue? Okay.
Consensus, that's all.
What? All right. So, request for determination for Route 69, Route 84. Installation of 4-pole lights for the town barn, Little League field.
You can take your seat.
Thank you.
We got it all warmed up for you.
Oh, I wasn't sure.
So Annie, you just gotta introduce yourself.
Right. I'm Annie Rossioli, Recreation Director. Cadian's not coming, I'm under the impression of. So we have our request in to do the lighting at the Little League field.
So, been working with Annie on this. They submitted a request for determination of applicability. We have 4 light posts going out, all within, I think we have some photos that, within the filing. I can pull them up. Dave came out there with us. It was one of our last site visits last Tuesday. All of the work is within previously disturbed areas, maintained areas right outside of the chain link fences for the Little League field. It's also map priority habitat. Natural Heritage has done a previous review there for the whole project down there. So Annie was able to go back to them and just have them relook at this lighting portion of it as we're not moving forward with that other project. So they gave their approval as a revision to that project, so it's not something that needs to go to them any further, which is good. There's minimal disturbance. Let's see where my notes are. In the filing with what each light post needs to go
30
in.
and square.
Thank you. Yeah, so very small disturbance, so it's a, just kind of probably anticipating construction conditions during work for this, sedimentation controls, because we are close to the resource areas. I can pull up the photos that were in the filing if you didn't look at that. You don't want me to show those?
No, I'm fine.
No.
You're okay?
Yep,
Okay.
I've been there.
I have a
many
copy
times.
on me too, for the exact location.
We saw
Yeah.
pretty much the location when we were there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just didn't know if anyone else wanted to see some of the photos, but.
One
Annie,
question we
running off
need.
a generator, or do we have power down there?
We have power down
The
there.
power.
Yep,
Yep.
there'll be trenches to them.
One question though, Becky, that I think we have to ask relative to that 30 and square is what process are they going to use to get the depth that we discovered on their paperwork? Because you don't want to have a front-end loader down there scooping things out. It'll make a hole that'll be big enough to crawl into.
I'm pretty sure I think it said it in their, in that
That's the-
scope of work that
the
they're
auger
just.
Is there an
drilled
auger or
shafts.
something?
Augering
Yep.
it,
It
yeah.
is.
4 drilled, auger, 4 drilled shafts. for precast bases.
Okay. And we'll have to have somebody on site to make sure that the operator does not encroach into the wetlands while he's operating the auger, because remember that the one that is near the front edge dugout
Yes.
is very, very close to that wetland.
Yep.
Yeah. I would actually, have a pre-construction meeting with them right before they start and make sure they understand
Good.
and show them where to put their sedimentation controls too. So that would be part of the conditions.
Yeah,
with
we
that.
also want to worry about how they're going to get out to the one in the right field location,
Yep, I
the
think
far right field.
there's a gate
Because
back
that's
there.
pretty densely foliaged. There's heavy tree growth out there.
The one on the right, that's where everything was cleared out, right?
Dave, are you talking about this one back here?
I want to make sure I'm picturing the right
That
one.
section right there,
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh.
that's mowed. That's a mowed area, maintained as field. I think they probably mow it once or twice a year, so.
And there's a gate at the back left.
Yeah, right over here, I think, right?
Okay.
This one over here is a little more vegetated, but it's still pretty open. They do some
But-
management of vegetation around the perimeters there, so there's no loss of
That's not the bad one.
Yeah.
The bad one is that one,
this one.
yep,
Yeah.
right up
yeah.
front. No, right up front.
Oh, this
Eh,
one
that
right
one
here?
right there, yeah.
Yeah, that
Because
one's
it's so
pretty
close to the wetland.
Yep.
All right,
So for this, where am I? I was gonna recommend a positive 2B. We're not approving any resource area delineations. Number 5, it's subject to our local bylaw. And a negative, number 3.
Yep, 5 and 3.
Yep, so that we can just condition that under the Wetlands Protection Act as a minor project, that it can move forward without a notice of intent filing, so.
I make a motion that we approve,
can we close the public hearing?
Oh. make a motion that we approve closing the public hearing.
I second it.
Any discussion? All in favor? All right, go ahead.
Make a motion that we approve the 5 and 3 recommendation, plus the relative comments made by the agent.
I second that.
Discussion? All in favor? Good.
All set.
All set,
Thank you very
Amy?
much for your time.
Thanks,
Yep.
Amy.
Just, sign this, please.
Oh, we're signing and signing.
Determination. For now.
All right, we're now up to 7:15. Hey, we were right on time.
Enough.
Request for determination of applicability, 14 Audubon Way, Peckham Woods, removal and replacement of a trail footbridge. Bernstein E.
Hello.
Are you Bernstein E?
Yes, Esau Bernstein. I am a Life Scout, Troop 7 in Brimfield, and this is my Eagle project.
All right.
Let me see if there's-
Signature, sir.
So this project is at Opakam Woods. We've all been out here. We went, I think when I first started, we did a site visit. We went down there talking about doing a beaver deceiver.
Yeah.
So this is one of the existing bridges on that first part of the trail going down. I do have some photos I went out there and took for you. So it's just a bridge replacement project, and I'll let you talk about what you're gonna do there a little bit.
So basically, the bridge that's there right now is kind of destroyed. Like, it's falling apart. They kind of put a little, like a pallet there to, so you just have somewhere to walk, but we're just going to take that whole thing out and all the wood there and just get rid of it, and then we're just going to bring in a replacement. And it's about 16 feet long. It's going to start a little bit before the beginning of this one.
Have you got a
Oh,
pointer?
yeah, there's a little pointer out there.
Yep,
You can
black
use.
Little black
Yeah.
thing.
So it's gonna start a little bit before here, so like this area, and then it's going all the way past the other one, and it's about 16 feet, and it's 3 feet wide.
You're gonna just carry it in?
Yeah. So we're gonna build it off site and then just bring it in. There's a cul-de-sac that the trail is right off of, so we can park there, and then just unload it and walk it down.
Bring it down the slope.
Yeah.
Hey.
We're gonna have a few people there, so we're gonna all
Okay.
bring it down. Yeah.
All right.
It's gonna be pretty heavy.
Becky, you have any problem with
I do not. So just so you're aware, he has been working with Opakam Land Trust, the property owner on it, and they've given their consent to it. So as you can see from the photo, they've been out there with them too. There's no
Yep, I
digging
see
that's,
Glenn there.
yep, no digging, that's Howie too. No digging involved. Very minor project. It's not, footpaths within the buffer zone, minimal ones can be exempt pursuant to the Wetlands Protection Act. Because this is a bridge, I wouldn't say this would meet the exemption, but I would say that can be conditioned, because it's an existing bridge with no digging, be conditioned as a negative number 3, and I'd recommend moving forward with it that way. And then obviously the usual 2B and 5, so we're not approving any resource areas, and we're reviewing it and conditioning it under our local bylaw.
Okay. All right.
Anything from the public?
Wait, no,
No?
no.
Make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Oh, actually, I have one more comment.
Oh,
So I just wanted to add, so either I would say that in our approval, we allow it to be 36 inches or 30. I think the existing
Okay.
one was 30 inches.
Mhm.
I don't think Opakam has a concern for either or. 30 would be less material, and it would meet the existing conditions, so maybe we could add that approval for either or in there.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, good.
Now I'd like to make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second?
Discussion. All in favor?
And a motion for the 5 and 3 for approval of installing the bridge at Opakam Woods.
5 and 3 or just 3?
+5,
Positive
positive
five.
to be
Yeah.
-3.
Yep.
All right.
I second that.
Seconded?
Yep.
Discussion? All in favor? Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Did you want the ad?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you, yep. Can you sign that, please?
Sign it.
So I'll process your paperwork tomorrow, and then either I can just mail it to you if that's easier. It has to be mailed certified, or if you want to pick it up, so.
Yeah, you show me the box, come pick it up.
Okay, all right, sounds good, thank you.
Yep, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So now 7:30 is,
We're ahead of schedule now.
holy mackerel.
Yes. All right, so, right, maybe at 7:30, we should say that this one's been continued in case any
Yeah.
abutters show up, so.
I gotta go. Glass of water.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Mhm.
Thank you. Bye, Annie. Should we go through some letter permits? when he
Yeah.
gets back?
Either that, or you can do Ramco, because that'll be quick.
Oh, okay, I can give you my updates, yeah.
Yeah. They communicated back with you?
Yes, yeah. Jeff, I have a question for you. That right of first refusal for the 225 Podunk, they had the address wrong. Would you like us to wait? I did have that on our agenda this evening.
I put a call into the attorney this afternoon.
Okay,
See what he says.
okay,
If it's wrong, it's wrong.
yeah,
You'd have to start over.
okay. All right, perfect. We're gonna scratch that right off of there then.
Notice,
I think we have time anyways, so.
Is that Poda?
Yeah, they just had the address wrong on there. So they have to
Is
potentially.
225 a different parcel?
It is a different parcel. The one in question is actually 227, I believe.
So they'll have to review the notice.
Yep, 227. That is the one with the house right here. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, we're gonna not talk about this one. They had the wrong address on there,
Right.
so.
You wanna go back to
Right, old business?
CPA? Updates on committee meetings, just to get that out of the way. There has not been a CPA meeting. How about trails?
There was a Trails Committee meeting, but it was not posted properly, so there could be no votes.
Nothing on
Discussion
open
was
space?
held relative to the third Saturday of this month being another workday, and primarily working again on the Riverlands.
That's this one coming up?
Third Saturday every month.
So where do they meet for the Riverlands?
I'll have to send you a note on that because they were unsure about whether they were meeting at, I think they're meeting at the sheds at the Riverlands.
Okay,
If that's not correct, you'll have an email first thing tomorrow morning.
thank you.
And Lakes Advisory, we don't know.
Yep. As far as, well, not Lakes Advisory, but I'm gonna send an email, but we were invited on August 18th. QQLA is having their annual meeting, invited everyone on the Conservation Commission to attend. I believe it's a Saturday or Sunday morning, but I have the email. I just figured I'd mention it at our meeting. I'll send that to you if you're interested.
All right.
I wanted to ask too, I'm gonna go through my little things that, so I don't forget at the end. Our next site visit schedule is August 13th, Tuesday, August 13th. We actually have, that morning, we have training for our new permitting software during the day. Just in the morning, I didn't know if it's possible to maybe either switch that day. I didn't know if you want to look at your agendas. I mean, we can figure it out now, or I can just email you and we can work towards it afterwards, but I won't be able to do site visits that morning.
What would be good for you?
The week before, August 6th on that Tuesday, or an afternoon of that week. I have training every morning that week, so.
How's August 6th?
I don't believe I have the 6th available.
Doesn't ring a bell as being anything on
All right. Well, what I'll do is I'll,
What time would you be looking to do?
mine. 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
same thing, 9 o'clock. I mean, as of right now, there's only one new project with a public hearing, one new notice of intent, but obviously things will be coming in over.
Well, let's change it pending any of you having a problem with it when you get on,
Okay.
all right?
To August 6th at 9?
Yeah,
All right, yeah, I'll have to check my schedule.
yeah, I
right now.
can't.
I mean, I'll send an email tomorrow or Thursday with these things that we kind of talked about here too. And then, obviously, I mentioned already, we talked about the July 31st site visit with Mass DOT,
Yeah.
but if anyone's available afterwards for going to 173 Main Street, I think
And
it'd be useful to have
Who
somebody.
among us can make that on the 31st?
I
am not.
believe I can make it.
Well, I won't make it for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
No, Raul wants me to climb that hill.
Yeah.
I'll be in Kennybunk, so that's.
So we get one, and maybe Steve?
Yeah, I'll reach out to Steve too, because I know he's on vacation this week, but he'll be back,
Two
so.
Plus you.
Yep, that's good.
Yeah.
Just a quick update too, I received a, copy of a draft plan for, Mr. Allard's property, 31 South Shore, to address, from that court order. I'll be meeting with the engineer on Friday, just kind of go over that initially, so we should be seeing a filing in the near future for that, hopefully.
Who you meeting with?
The engineer, Steve Brissette,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
While you're meeting with the engineer, could you also check to see what has been done relative to maintaining that drain
Which stream?
right there? The drain that connects between South Pond and the stream on Allard's side.
Oh, the culvert?
Yeah, didn't they clean that out? I thought that was
They're
already,
supposed to.
I thought it already
it's-
happened.
It's
I was
cleaned
with
out.
Al Allard the last time, not Al. Is it
Gary.
Gary Al Allard's from Dales. A couple weeks ago, when we went out there, and we
Yeah.
walked over, and I was asking him about it, how is he keeping this thing clean? Because it's all clean. He says, I'm not doing anything. Just stays clean.
So the beavers aren't clogging it, I remember
The
this conversation.
Beavers are not clogging
Yeah.
it now,
At this time, at least.
at
but
this time, so. Well,
There was some,
I believe it, because it was clean. and
it was
didn't-
clean. I
Water was
witnessed
flowing.
that,
Well, I hope you don't mind my skepticism.
So remember, there was some erosion on the side of the road going down to the
Right.
culvert on the
Yeah, on
south
the other
pond
side,
side.
yeah.
Would you like to see that addressed in this plan, potentially? I mean, I don't know that he has to as the.
Is that on his property,
Where it's coming from.
That's his property right there, I
Yeah.
believe, yeah.
on the other side of the road?
Yep, he
Yeah.
owns both sides of the road
Okay,
right
all
there.
right.
Because he has that pathway that goes right down to the cove.
I think we did mention that at our site
We
visit
talked
too,
about it.
yeah.
DPW should get involved there. I mean, they're grading the road.
Yeah, they just graded the road too, yeah.
So, and that's a hazard.
Right, you can go right off the road right there. All right,
I am free in the morning at 6, so.
okay, great.
I just need to be done, hard stop at 11:15.
Okay.
So if it fills up and we want to start a little bit earlier, I'd be up open for that.
I don't know if anyone else, I mean, if,
Earlier the better for me, as
that's
far as
fine
I'm
with,
concerned.
I have no problem starting earlier,
I'm
so.
okay with starting any of them at 8 o'clock, the earlier the better.
Yeah. 6.
That's fine. I'm up at 5, so.
Yeah.
You're on your own at 6.
I have no problem with it.
Okay, so you want to tentatively schedule it for 8?
Sure.
As we get closer and I send my notes out to you, we can, I'll figure it out. If we have a lot of stuff, then we'll move it to 8 o'clock,
What
but,
if we need Steve Alton to show up?
what?
What if we need Steve to show up?
We'll tell him 7:30.
Yeah, right.
Pretty foggy eyes.
Eddie, it'll be your job to call Steve at 7.
Oh, my God. All right, so
All right, well, we're still waiting here, so.
7:30.
7:30, we have a cancellation for,
Well, request for
on the-
continuation.
yeah, for 300-1038, installation of a new paved driveway to replace existing gravel driveway and restoration portions of gravel driveway. Any problem with that, gentlemen?
Nope.
Okay. Consensus.
Perfect. All right, so we got to,
Now we have 15 more minutes.
yep,
Can I just ask a general question? I'm friends with both parties in this, so what's my responsibility in a case like that? I mean, I'm sure everybody knows other people in town that have situations where it would come up. Would I recuse myself from any discussion on a situation like that, or would it?
you can.
You can if you feel the need to,
Yeah.
but there's no monetary involvement
No.
whatsoever or anything.
Are you in a
So
butter?
just because I know that I'm friendly with the people involved doesn't
Yeah.
Not in a
automatically
butter.
create a.
Yeah, if you're in a butter to the property,
Yeah.
then,
No,
yeah.
no,
Yeah.
no.
Or if you were afraid that you might be biased one way or the other.
Nope.
Yeah, and that goes either way.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, he wanted me to do the old business
Okay.
here, so.
Yeah.
All right, so old business, we have file number 300-251, the Hobbsbrook Plaza. This is the one that we've been working on for some time with the failed retaining wall. So, after our last meeting, they're waiting for the geotechnical engineer to go out and assess it. The representative for this company is out of Arizona. He was coming up here. I met him on site. They had provided me, just a quick kind of detail of where they would need to do some potential boring testings. That's the next step. I met him at the end of June. We walked the site because they do need to get a small machine down in the back below the wall. So we kind of walked that. He took some photographs. And then as they were getting closer to scheduling the date they go out there, they're supposed to get in touch with me ahead of time so we could just make sure they understood because we're very close to the wetland right there. So that was the next step. Minimal clearing. Most of what below the wall would need to kind of get cleared to get into some of the smaller pines that have grown up right up against the wall. So the vegetation, the larger trees next to the wetland wouldn't be impacted. So
Are they gonna repair from above there?
I believe so. This is just borings they're doing right now for
Right.
testing, so.
But did they give you any indication as to why it failed in the first place?
well, they're still figuring out. That's why they need the geotechnical engineer.
Oh,
So, but it's mostly on the edges, so it might have to do with the fill and the large boulders up there too.
Yeah, that was the theory, was that it appears that they backfilled that whole thing with large boulders in addition to other miscellaneous things, and that is
Just gave
probably,
out.
Yeah.
well, yeah, it basically pushed the
Washed out.
blocks.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
All right, that's that one. We went over Cedar Lake, Hamilton Rod and Gun Club. Let me just find my notes here. So I've been in communication with Ramco, trying to get a start date from them so they can get most of the work done and get the site stabilized, because it's been open for a really long time. The last correspondence I had was a few weeks ago. They were planning on starting work this week. So I reached back out to them. They haven't started yet. They're waiting a machine to be moved, hopefully within the next couple days. And for GPS coordinates to come in so they can do a layout of everything instead of having to wait for the engineer at this point. So they should be getting ready to start in the next couple of days. So what they're going to be working on, if they haven't already, is finishing getting that tracking pad in entrance, starting to get into doing a couple of the stormwater basins. They still have to do the whole excavation of the hillside next to the rifle range shooting area, but they're gonna start stabilizing all that back slope too. So that's my understanding, so any day hopefully, so
Good.
Any day?
any day.
does it look like the project is going to cease at the end of this working year?
Well, I believe their contract with Hamilton Rod and Gun expires, so I
Yeah.
think it needs to.
But they're looking at a new one,
But
right?
what my concern is if they're still going to be there, if Ramco itself is still gonna be there, all the erosion controls need either replacement or replenishment.
Oh, yeah, and they're still supposed to be monitoring and.
But the
going
sections that are at the base of the gravel pit
Yeah.
where they're working, they're gonna have to move some of that aside to
Oh,
get
yeah.
their equipment in.
Yep,
A lot of those have failed, and the silt fence has failed. The silt fence is falling down. But that's just a matter of time. It's been there for over 2
yep,
years.
and I think when they go in and they put the driveway in, they're supposed to modify all that and repair it, so,
We need to make sure of that they understand that.
yeah, no, I know.
All right. What else?
All right, just gonna do a couple letter permits while have a few minutes here.
Yeah, we got the back to do, we can do that.
Yep. That's me. All right. 114 Clark Road. Just to show you, we've got Clark Road, we've got 3 trees, 3 dead trees. There's some photos for you if you don't believe me. I'm just kidding.
Should I,
So this one's into the wetland. I believe it's this one right here. It's hard to see. I have another photo of it. Right, dead tree.
3 dead trees.
Yep. Another one here, big one
Should we,
on the edge. There's one by the road. I didn't take a picture because I thought DPW was just gonna take it down, so.
okay.
3 dead deciduous trees.
It looks like there's a lot of growth there, so we don't necessarily need,
Yes, sorry, there's,
replacements.
yeah, it's treed on both sides. I mean, there's wetland on both sides of the driveway. It's all forested in the front. I don't see any need for replacement.
Favor? Great, next one.
All right, 308 The Trail.
La Rochelle.
All right, this one. Okay, so this is a very large pine. I don't know, I can't see it that well from here. I don't know if you can see it better from the back, but this section of the tree, this upper portion, it was like a 20-inch limb recently fell off. It says the tree's infested with carpenter ants. That limb fell off recently into the lawn area, damaged the shed here. I took quite a few pictures of the area because there's a lot of trees in this area. This is at the end of the cul-de-sac, at the end of the cove there.
Right.
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of trees here. He's got a good vegetated bank. So this is the trees over here, so this is behind that. I mean, with the loss of the top portion of the tree, which you can see right there. I mean, I don't know, I mean, didn't ask him to do an arborist report. It's probably weighed more on this side now that we lost the other big limb, so it could be a threat, so.
Right.
And with the amount of trees in this area, I just didn't see the need or where to put one in, and nice vegetated bank along the whole other side, so
Okay.
I didn't anticipate any concerns.
Any neighbors, all neighbors, all in favor? Okay, 110 South Shore.
All right, this is the one we went to. This is the one with the two neighbors. We have
Yep.
110, 112. I didn't take any pictures of the 112, but these are the two birches that he had flagged dead, no concerns for those
Right.
ones. He had submitted his own separate application for these two, and then they jointly did the ones on the property line. I don't have any concerns with this.
Right, they took the marker off of the, was it an oak that we didn't want
Right.
them to take
They were
down, right?
right.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, yep. Well, this one is just for the two.
Yeah, this
for
is
front
just
of
the two
110.
trees.
Yep.
All in favor? One oh two South Shore.
Yeah, 112 South Shore Drive. This was the one, and I didn't take any pictures when we were out there of these ones, but this is the one where we had the question where it wasn't the birch in the front.
Yep.
She had them kind of marked differently than what he had out there. From my recollection, I think it ended up being 4 pines and the one birch that was close to his house. Now, they didn't have a replanting plan for any of these. Is it something that you want to look at?
Are you still on 112?
No, this is,
112.
Maritas?
Yes, Maritas.
I thought we just voted to.
no, we just voted for the two birch trees that are over here
Oh,
on the
okay.
neighbor's
Because
property.
these two are on the
Go ahead.
boundary.
I thought that there was, this is one of those situations where I'd like to see the site after the
Okay.
trees come out to make a determination on whether we should require replanting.
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree.
Because those are all substantial trees, and I think it's gonna really look significantly different once they get those out, and we may wanna, require some plantings in here or closer to the lake.
And we should emphasize in the letter of approval that our standard is 2-to-1 replacement,
Right,
should it be necessary.
yep.
All right,
Do you want to vote on it?
all in favor?
Yeah, with those
I
stipulations.
voted on it already, I just didn't know I did. Okay, now we're on 102.
Yes. So 102, I mean, I took a bunch of pictures, but you were there, so we don't need to look at them. Did get the sketch just showing, all the small, I think it was hemlocks, and there were some deciduous small ones, either dead or leaning over the house, which were all on the side of the house. And then there was the one tree in the yard to trim, and then there was the large leaning pine over here, which
Oh, yeah.
actually, I talked to her today, and that actually fell today, so.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Yeah, yeah.
Really?
Well, it was already down,
Yeah,
so,
but it's a
yeah.
big tree.
yep. So this ends up being, it's the removal 17 on both sides of the house, the one large pine and trimming 2 trees, so. I did also talk to her about that driveway discharge down there, and that's
Yeah.
something that they've had a lot of issues with over the years. But talked to her about adding some riprap down there to kind of help slow down the water, trap some sediment. She cleans out a lot of sediment there. A lot comes off the road, especially when they grade it. But I talked to her about, the private roads and the betterment process, and there is a resident on their road that's interested in kind of looking into that. So hopefully maybe they can make some improvements, but also that maybe there's something that they can do in their driveway to help kind of keep sediment from getting into the pipe and things like that, so.
What was the residents' reaction to your idea about placing some trap rock down there to,
They said they've done that, they just keep having to kind of dig it out, but they would, follow recommendations, so.
Well, that's definitely a problem. It's eroding out of
Yeah.
there, so something needs to be done.
well, one of the things that you could suggest is they could put in a small rain garden right at the end of that.
Yeah.
Well, I think the problem is it's just gonna fill up with the sediment, the silt, so, Right,
long
which
as
needs
that
to get
road is
cleaned out, either or needs to
Oh,
get cleaned
yeah,
out,
that's a good
so,
point.
but we can give him options. I
I think the
trapping,
options would be good,
yeah,
because one of the things they may object to is that lawn was being mowed. And if you put down the stone in order to dissipate the volume and get all the sediment out, they're not gonna mow on the
well,
stones.
I think where the discharge point was vegetated. And let's look at that.
It's right on the right-hand side, just below the trees.
Yeah,
Right.
so,
Yeah, rock would be a better idea.
but maybe, like I said to her, there might be something they can do up on the road or in the driveway to help kind of catch the sediment up
Yes.
there.
So all of this sediment's coming out of this pipe, coming from the
Oh,
road?
yeah, from the road,
Oh,
yep,
yeah.
yep.
This is not a first.
Right.
David and I have been there.
5 times?
Not a lot, anyway. At one point in time, it washes all the stairs right down.
Yes, it did.
So no replanting for this site?
I thought most of the stuff that was being removed.
Was dead.
Was dead because of canopy.
Yeah,
The understory.
okay.
The only thing I would suggest as replacement, if we're gonna ask for replacement on that site, would be ground cover. Any kind of ground cover, because it's very shady. And at the same time, it has a lot of bare spots, which is part of the problem after that sediment comes off the road.
Well, I think there's some on the
Yeah,
edges there.
I don't know if they're gonna get anything to grow in there.
Yeah. Anyway, Ed, we need to
Yeah,
vote.
there's plenty of canopy.
All in favor of tree removal?
Yeah.
7:45, Mr. Chairman.
58.
Oh, we're at 6,
Seven.
7:45.
What? Oh, yeah. 7:45. We're talking about abbreviated notice
Yep.
of intent?
No, resource area delineation, yeah.
Resource area delineation, DEP file number 300-1037, 650 and 680 Route 15, seeking approval of delineated resource area on subject parcels, Landing Rock LLC, represented by McClure Engineering Inc. Originals, copies?
Take the originals. Thank you very much. Figure I can start here with this versus the plans if you want. I can switch the plans for you.
Yep. Peter Engel from McClure Engineering. So basically, we're looking to do an ANRAD in this section of the property right here, behind the old Howard Johnson site.
All right, so this is 2 parcels, so it's 650 and 680. And I think the total, I have it here, hold on a second. It's about 160 acres total or so, so it's a pretty big site.
Yep.
P came in, property recently changed ownership. They're kind of looking to explore what their options are on this property. They're thinking about maybe filing a notice of intent for, just a roadway going in at this
I'll say,
point in
yep.
time. So we kind of came in, we talked a little bit, recommended filing an ANRAD because we have quite a bit of resource areas here, and that concept plan did show some impact to those resource areas. We have a perennial stream, lead mine brook that runs through here.
Coldwater Stream.
Yep, yep. We have, so we have riverfront associated with that. We have disturbed riverfront from the old Howard Johnson site. We have undisturbed riverfront bordering vegetated wetlands, bank, so a lot of things going on here. So I recommended that we kind of start with the ANRAD process so they can help them with their planning purposes too. Because once, we know that for a site, if you impact your riverfront, you have a certain amount of area you get for your site. as well as your bordering vegetated wetland, and we're looking at some potential impact with that plan. So they submitted the ANRAD. Resource delineation work was done by Mary Ann DePinto of Three Oaks Environmental. It was included in the filing. Due to the size of the site and the amount of resource areas here, per, our wetland bylaw regulations, I'd recommend that, you reserve your right to request a third-party review. The only question that I have for you, Pete, is that I noticed that, so the area, let me zoom in here.
Have you walked it at all?
I have not walked this site, no. That we're just looking at doing the ANRAD just for this area, so I didn't know if they haven't looked at the rest of the site.
They have, I know he's not interested in really having.
Doing,
Because that's the most narrow point of Lead Mine Brook on the entire
Yep.
property. That's kind of the only area he's looking to even consider a crossing.
okay. Now, I guess the one reason I asked that is because, if say there is a road that comes in here and it's
Right.
residential house lots, we do have riverfront down here, so we might have to go into that area, so it might be
Yeah.
useful to kind of do it all once now for the ANRAD.
Plus, the piece has connection on Lead Mine Road,
Does
unless you guys have carved it off of that.
I don't know does it?
Right, it might have been carved off before, so this is what the assessor has
Right.
here. So
Yeah,
there's
I
lead
think-
mine,
There's lead mine.
Vinton, it doesn't look like there is there. I mean, there is a lot of frontage in the front here. If you guys looked at, areas over here, I don't know, obviously the brook comes this way, but,
Yeah.
so I didn't know,
And the land behind is owned by who?
Land,
this land?
This land.
um,
It was all
I believe it's the same owner.
same owner, right?
Correct.
And he wants to cross our stream?
Correct.
That's interesting.
So, right, I didn't know if, where the road's gonna come up, if there's other things that maybe, at least if you're not looking at developing this upper portion, at least
Yep.
including for the ANRAD, maybe this lower portion, at this time. We have seen some sites come in where there's certain portions of the property where they don't wanna include in the ANRAD, and we can clearly say that it's not included in our
Right.
ORAD when we issued that.
Yep.
But if he's, looking to get a road in to do lots in that lower section, it'd probably be useful at this time to kind of include at least that lower section in the ANRAD. I think.
Right. Yeah, no, I can mention that to the owner and see if he wants to do that or.
Okay,
And we need to be careful that it doesn't get segmented. So,
correct,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
And this is just the ANRAD, and,
They brought it to us
Yeah.
in a segmented fashion.
right.
So what are you asking from us tonight, Becky?
well, my recommendation would be that we have a third-party review.
Yep.
Review the delineation, because is quite a bit of resource area out here. I think you go back to the property owner, and maybe say, maybe we should include this lower portion at this time. The ANRAD, they can kind of ask for what sections they want, but I think if you're gonna come forward with a proposal beyond what that road is, which I think they would need to see a little bit more than
Right.
that road at that time,
Yep.
then these other areas are gonna come into play, so.
Yeah, if you're crossing that stream without a reason, then that, sorry, my voice, that's a problem.
Right.
Because you have, how many acres is the rest of it? 500?
I'm not sure about the Holland part.
You have a guess?
It's
I know they
significant.
What?
just broke off maybe 100-acre piece, so it's probably roughly the same, maybe 200.
So it's probably about 200 that's backed up that.
Right. But, and then most of that is wetlands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Gene Boubon, the town planner, did sit down when Pete came in and we talked about that, and, because it's rural residential, they need to know what they're be doing out there at that time for any permitting
Right.
for anything.
Right.
One other thing I would say to keep in mind too is that, because this is a perennial stream, and if there is a crossing that comes in the future, that, you know, when we get to the point of reviewing anything after the ANRAD, probably looking for more consultation, be looking for wildlife habitat evaluations, per the Wetland
We're gonna need
Protection
to have
Act,
a
right?
wildlife habitat evaluation, because we know that that's moose habitat. Your owner had a tree cutting operation going about 12 or 14 years ago. And in order to be able to get out there without having the equipment disturb the property, he hired the cutter who had horses, Belgians, to go in and take the trees out. And as he was doing that, a moose and her baby came out of the woods. And so he called the owner and said, okay, next year we'll take the trees out. Not this year. So we know clearly that it's moose habitat.
Okay.
Yeah. Beyond that,
So we need to vote on the third-party,
Well-
or,
we ought to take a look at it ourselves. You know, is it all marked? It's all marked, right?
Yep.
Flag.
So I think we should, as a committee, take a quick look at it.
Yep.
See what it looks like. And then if they need a third-party review, that's, we can do that at that time.
yep, that makes sense.
Doesn't seem fair to take, it could be all up. It
Right.
isn't, but,
Well,
you know.
They did submit us a plan with their flagging, which was part of their
Is it-
filing.
Did you do it, or is it the old flags?
There are there's new flagging along the actual river itself, up in the back.
Yeah,
There's old flagging from an old ORAD,
yeah.
which we are having reflagged this week, so there should be flags up there.
Okay, so once he has a completed flagging, we'll take a look at it.
Mr. Chairman, there is history for that property being put in the hands of a third-party reviewer before the Conservation Commission goes out, because it is such a huge tract of land with so many different waterways on it. It makes
that's
for
a good
several
point,
days
yeah.
worth of cross-country walking.
Yeah, but yeah, okay. That's a good point. What do the rest of you think?
Yeah, I'm fine either way. I do think that ultimately, we're gonna end up wanting a third-party review, so that,
But one of the things a third-party reviewer can do is show areas that are critical concern, and we can go out and look at those to see whether in fact there is wetland problems there that the Wetland Protection Act covers.
Wouldn't it be similar
All right,
to,
so I get the idea that you'd like, that the committee would like to do a third-party review.
yep,
Some of us
It'd be
would, yes.
necessary anyway.
Fine?
yeah.
All right, so, all in favor of third-party review? All right,
Would you like a continuation?
so when,
Of course.
but he hasn't got the final, flags yet. He hasn't got it completely flagged. He's doing that next week.
They should be done at the end of this week. I don't know when the next meeting is. Or when
Right, well, it's
whoever
gonna-
the third
If we're
party
making a
is.
decision
gonna-
tonight, you can just get Becky the.
Right.
right, it's gonna take time before, you know, we have to go through the process of
Right.
voting on someone to do the third-party review and getting approvals and moving forward. So there's gonna be a little bit of time before that. Hopefully that can get done before
Yeah.
the next meeting.
And our next meeting is a month away.
Yep. So the way you guys changed the regs, the last time we did the update, you changed how we vote or approve for third-party reviews. So right now, we can just solicit for 3 quotes by qualified consultants before it would go back to the applicant. We don't have that as part of the process anymore. So the commission, or if appointed, its agent will choose a consultant to independently review the submitted material and make recommendations. So that's how we can move forward now.
All right,
Yep.
Okay?
all right, any questions?
No.
You
All
agree?
agreed.
I'm good.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Thanks, Pete. And we can be in touch, and if you want to speak
Yeah,
to
and
him
I'll,
about adding
I'll
that
talk to the owner
corner.
to see if he wants to
Okay,
include more area.
okay,
So obviously, he's the one paying for it.
okay, all right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Becky, if you check the old records, you know, the upstairs in the police station records,
Yep.
I think I remember that Ecotech was the third-party reviewer at the previous time. And I think Art Allen was one of the people that did it.
Oh, good, okay.
Yeah,
I would expedite that.
I agree with you.
Yep.
That's the way I remember it. Notice of intent, DEP number 300 dash, we didn't have one, TBD?
No file number yet.
Okay, 179 Main, installation of a stormwater management system within a commercial parking lot. 179 Main Street, LLC, represented by Burton Engineering. Right there.
Good evening.
Do you have the legal ad of the butter notifications?
No, I do not.
All right, technically can't open the public hearing
Right.
without those. I think you can still have a discussion. We don't have a DP file number anyways,
So
so
no
there's no voting that would be done anyways.
Has it been made or for the filing?
Yes, the DEP filing was made end of June, June 24th, I think it was.
Yep, so there's, yeah, we have their notice of intent, you know, we help them through the process of that. Everything's been done without proof of the butter notifications and the legal ad.
Would the committee like to continue? Just to-
I think, yeah, we have input, we've created a design. I think this is the fourth time we're here. This is the first time I'm here. I should introduce myself. I'm Callisto Burton, and the plan was prepared under my direction. And I think we could give an overview of what we propose, and then you have your engineer here, he can comment. All right? Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And Ben Tully's here, the owner of the property.
I agree, it's on the agenda, I think we could have discussion, but obviously, no voting. We don't have a DP file number anyway, so you're not in a position to make a vote as well, so.
Right.
But I think it
Yeah,
would
but-
be useful to have the discussion and,
And we can clear up
Go
everything
over
and
it.
just wait for the technical things to
Yep.
happen. As it happens, we've been working on this property for many years, so we actually had a survey from 2012 that we used to confirm the conditions back then. This is a partial site. I know it's confusing, but I'm outlining the building. There's the building. Right. And there was a paved parking lot behind it, around the front, of course, and in the back. And then I think between 2012 and now, another parking lot was added over here with all the approvals. Since this area in the back that's hatched was gravel at one time. In 2012, our survey shows it was gravel. It was since covered with asphalt millings or recycled asphalt pavement. Right? So as a result of that, it increases the runoff because we had gravel. The back parking lot isn't used that often, so we can't say it was hard packed. So we assumed that the back was pervious, and now we're trying to compensate for the additional runoff. Right. We did drainage calculations, and we've submitted those to show what the change in runoff is for the 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storm. I should go on, I know you're all familiar with the property, but I'll just go through it to be sure.
Yeah.
So here's Teddy G's, used to be Rom's, and then there's a driveway that drops behind it, and it drops a whole, well, actually more than a story. It's probably 14 feet between the front and the back. And then along the back, this line that I'm showing you here is a hill, and so that's a slope. This whole area was filled many years ago. And so we have a steep slope coming back to this area behind here. We found that when we looked at the topo and did field visits, at the bottom of this driveway that comes from, well, facing the building from the street or coming from the left side, there's a low point and water runs down the embankment, this area. And then there's another low point further to the right, which runs down in this area. There's also a drain pipe, which has been here since it was on our survey in 2012, off to the left side of the site, and we did discover that the pipe that comes out, and there's an existing pipe, comes out through that embankment and discharges down here. And that pipe was there, I guess when they filled the site, they installed that. Right. Anyway, so what we determined to do to compensate for the additional runoff, as I said, we looked at not only the rate of runoff, but we looked at the volume. So we decided to store the volume of the additional runoff. So the runoff ranges from, 5,400 cubic feet of additional runoff for a 2-year storm to 4,040 cubic feet for the 100-year storm. All this is in our, 7,000 cubic feet, thereabouts, just under 7,000 for the 100-year storm. I've been up on the roof. There's several roof drains in the center of the building, one sort of in the middle, and then 2 up in the front, one there. And they all discharge to a pipe on the side of the building. There's a door that goes into the building over here, and they discharge, and they're connected to a 4-inch PVC pipe that runs right out to an embankment on this side, which would be the right side of the building. That's existing.
The entire roof?
The entire roof. There are roof drains and or gutters around the perimeter of the building, but to me, that looks like it's overflow in case the drains in the center of the building get clogged. As a matter of fact, the day I went up there, the center drain was clogged, and when we cleared out the water, I watched it all run right out here. So I know that these drains run out there. There is a portion in the front of the building when it was redone that has a mansard roof or a sloped roof. That drains to the front. Anyway, the roof area is over 13,000 square feet. So what we chose to do was to intercept the water that comes out on from the roof and discharges to the side and put in a couple of dry wells. The area is limited. As I said, there's a paved parking lot over there. There's also a very large tree, and we wanted to put in a lot of dry wells and deep, but we probably have to take the tree down to do that. So the second thing was to put in an interceptor trench along the entire back. Okay, and what it involves is chambers, sort of half pipes. The common company is Coltec, galleys, and run them along here. It's about 230 feet long. So those galleys would be put in 3 to 4 feet below the ground, set level. They'd have stone underneath them, stone around them, stone on top of them, and then we leave an area of stone that comes right to the surface. So when they go in, we'd have a stone trench all along the back. So all the water and this whole parking lot here flows to that embankment in the back of the property. So as I said, it's just over 230 feet of stone trench along here that would intercept all the water. The dry wells hold a certain volume. We're going to have more rain that goes into that volume than that volume can hold. That's okay. In the calculations, we need a certain amount. I told you we're going to compensate by storing a volume. If the dry wells fill up, it'll just continue to run over. So water will continue to run out the pipe on the side. The trench in the back, if that were to fill up, it would come up to the ground and then overflow the embankment. We didn't plan to have any pipes discharged out to the side. So that's going to hold the water and it'll percolate into the ground. This whole area is fill. Like I said, it was filled a long time ago, and it ranges in all types of soil, but we can see there's gravel and stones, there's sand, there's silts, there's clays. With a 230-foot long trench, I know that we'll intercept areas that are going to percolate into the ground so that the water that gets in there will seep into the ground. So that's an overview.
Okay, good overview. Becky, you want to start?
Okay, so maybe we should have Chuck come up from CME. We have our engineer here who's been
Okay.
helping us with our third-party review, kind of going over things. This plan that's up on the screen is a new plan that's been revised, was submitted yesterday afternoon, so it wasn't on our recent filings for you to look at. I did try to forward that so you could get a look at it. In your pile that I left here, your packet here for you, there is some email correspondence that I printed for you so you can see the correspondence that we've Chuck, myself, and Burton Engineering has had kind of with questions related to the project, some answers and other questions here too. But I mean, Chuck's been working on this with us, we going over it, so I don't know if it's kind of useful to go over your review of it and the questions that you've had, and maybe we can go through that. I mean, it's a couple things that we've discussed too, additional questions, but we could start
Are they
there.
are you up to the current plan?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Actually, our firms have been working together.
Yeah.
We had a plan before this. Chuck came up with some additional comments, and so then we did this to address his comments.
So I don't, Becky, you don't want me to really recap how we got to where we are now? We just kind of talk about where we are now?
I think that sounds good. Maybe
Okay.
the review of the last plan and this one a little bit here, so.
I
Sure.
don't think you're old enough to recap this.
Thank you, I appreciate that, but
We can go back to the most recent plan, if you find that helpful. I can pull that one up too.
that's okay. Just
Okay.
for the sake of time, Burton had an initial plan, and Becky and I provided some comments on it. Essentially, what they were looking at is they kind of had the chamber infiltration system more clustered around the center of the parking lot, and the way the parking lot is configured, the grades of the parking lot, and the way that we have the stormwater issues on site, you know, I think it's going to be much better if you spread that infiltration out and spread that flow out, and you're not concentrating it in one place of the parking lot. And the parking lot lends itself very well to that. It's very flat at the bottom end of it, so that's kind of how we got to where we are now. You know, Becky and I had spent quite a bit of time talking with the neighbors and looking at the site and this sort of thing. So the overall methodology is fine. Essentially what they're doing is they're looking at a static method of where you compare the existing volume of runoff to the proposed volume of runoff, and you size the infiltration system such that it can hold the difference in the two volumes. Does everyone understand that? So they did do some test bits out there because it's pretty clear that the area has been filled. We didn't know what type of material they were going to find. It turns out that they found some relatively suitable material. It's not all boulders and this sort of thing, so they'll be able to install the system without just blowing the whole place up, so to speak. And so I don't know if I'm stealing any of Callisto's thunder here. The overall theory behind the infiltration system is they're gonna install these chambers, which are, you know, there's kind of a picture of them down the lower left. I'm sure you guys are familiar with them. Yeah. And those chambers will be bedded in crushed stone. The crushed stone will also provide some additional storage volume for the stormwater as it's infiltrating into the ground underneath. And then on top of the chambers, essentially what you'll have is you'll have a layer of filter fabric, and you'll have additional crushed stone put on top of that. And what that will do is it'll allow the water to sheet flow off of the parking lot and then go down into the crushed stone. The filter fabric would take out any sediment or you know, things of that nature that may reduce the volume of the overall infiltration system. And it also allows you a way to maintain the system, so that if the filter fabric becomes plugged up or something stops working, you can remove that top layer of crushed stone, replace the filter fabric, and you're back in business, so to speak. So that's how the water will enter the system, and that's how pollutant sediment will get filtered out from the infiltration system. One of the things that we've been talking about is how wide we want to make that crushed stone surface that's essentially exposed in the parking lot where the water is going to run down into the system. Currently, Callisto shows about a 2-foot wide section, and we'd like to see that be wider so that you know, the water has a much better chance of getting into the system, and then it'll also help bend out in, you know, your maintenance intervals on it will be spread out much further. You have a much wider section of filtering there. Another issue is just to have Callisto provide some additional drainage basin area mapping. One of the comments that we had was, you have this 13,000 square foot roof that's essentially kind of going through one roof leader that's 4 inches in diameter, and I think it's got to be either a lot bigger than that, or there's multiple roof leaders coming off. So
Yeah, like I said, I was up there, Ben's here, he could tell you, I watched where we saw the water. So they probably, you're right, it's undersized, and that's probably why they have the inlets, I mean, not the inlets, the gutters all around the perimeter, so if they get overloaded, the roof will fill up and flow to the corners. But I witnessed the main drain is right in the middle, and this gets this whole roof. Now, this building's 13,000 plus square feet. These dry wells only need the area for 1,000 square feet. So, in the calculations, that's all we need to fill up those dry wells. So I think we got it covered, but,
sure, no, that's fine.
we can go out there with a hose and run some more tests if you'd like to be there.
So I was just looking for some additional documentation, just so that we knew what we were looking at. A really minimal comment was just to provide an overall drainage report that included all the information. So as the project has been moving from the beginning through to where we are now, we've kind of just been getting supplemental drainage calculations and that sort of thing. So we've kind of asked that, can we have one complete report that has the most up-to-date information in it. So one of the things that Becky and I have been talking about is what's going to happen with the slope on the bottom end of the parking lot. Right now, the plan is showing to have the existing riprap channels replaced, so to speak. And Burton has shown the bottom edge of the parking lot pitching back towards the stone trench. And would we be better off maybe extending the little berms made of millings across the whole back of the parking lot to really help capture that water and put it into the infiltration system, and maybe just using those riprap channels as a real high level overflow or something like that? Or we were just kind of going back and forth on some different ideas and how that slope back there is going to work, and how that the bottom edge of the parking lot is gonna work with the infiltration system. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I mean, I have a couple things. One, to go back to the 24-inch inlet.
Could you grab the mic, please?
Yeah.
To go back to the 24-inch inlet, 24-inch crushed stone that we talked about
Yes,
at the beginning.
the stone trench, yep.
You suggest 4 feet, because, I mean, we want to make one revision that everybody's happy with, so that if Burton's
I was
going to
gonna
make,
get to that.
if Burton's going to make the 24 into, 25, I don't think you're probably going to be happy at 25. So would it be 48? Would it be?
I think 48 would be fine. How wide are the, so
Those are-
you're,
it's
which
about-
wall text are you
It's
using?
about 10 feet, the entire volume of,
Yeah.
when you
So
look at the two.
If you have about half of that, 4 to 5 feet,
Okay.
something like that.
Okay.
Put it up
and
to
I
5
think-
feet.
I think that would be sufficient, and
Yeah, from a cost standpoint, it really doesn't matter because we're filling it up and,
No,
he's gonna dig this up, so we can
It's
make it
fine.
5 feet.
The other thing, I think that the two riprap locations, if we berm them up on the top so that we get all the water to channel into this system, I think we should still leave those just in case it comes over the berm so that it has a place for the water to go down. But I mean, it's gonna be a lot of water. I mean, you're storing thousands of gallons of water. I mean, you have a trench that's gonna be 10 feet wide, 230 feet long, and 4 feet deep, filled with those culverts and crushed stone. So that's that's there's a few swimming pools right there.
6,400 cubic feet.
Right, so, I mean, that's, multiply that by 7.5 gallons per cubic foot.
That's cubic
so-
feet, yeah.
Yeah, so you're talking about, 42,000 gallons that it'll hold. So if it does go over some type of berm that we put in the back, I would want to leave those two rip
What we
berms.
would do is, you can see there's a dark line up here and down here. We had a berm to make sure everything was channeled here to get in here. What we're talking about now is, I guess, extending the berm, except at those channels, and that'll guarantee that all the water that runs off here is going to get into that trench. Now, the water naturally goes down these two locations anyway. So putting the trench there will stop the initial, hour of rain, and then it's gonna fill up and it's gonna come over, and those are the low spots, so it's gonna come over there now. And that's where it's coming, it's gonna keep on going. So we need to put that there. So I guess the answer to the question is that we will put the berm across here. The area between the gravel, the open gravel and the end, because we're not gonna bring it right to the end, we're gonna have a little bit of it paved and a little pitch back, 2-3%, just to slope back, so as the water comes down, it's got 5 feet now of gravel to get across, but should it get across, and it'll hit pavement and slope back, and a berm.
Right, maybe we should just have on the plan too, what the slope
Yeah.
from this section to there will be, so it's very clear when they're installing the pavement that will happen. And I think that's what we were looking for, was a berm in the back, so that way, if water came down, it doesn't, start to infiltrate and we have heavy flows, it's just gonna go over the bank. So that's what we're trying to avoid, and I think by doing the berm back there, right, systems need an overflow. I don't think that's what we were suggesting, but, to have that berm. And then also too, I know you said it's gonna pitch here, and maybe that'll help that. But we just wanna make sure if water's coming down this way, that it's gonna end up in the system and not, there could have been a gap here, but we'll avoid that now. I think that'll be
But even though we're doing all this, that's what happens today. So right now, it runs off here and here.
Oh, we know.
That's where it runs off. You've been there. So, there's no reason why it wouldn't continue, but we'll continue to have berms in between to stop
Well,
going off someplace else.
okay, good. My question is, wouldn't it be better to, if that flow was spread out across a bigger area instead of channeling it into into the existing areas that it goes right now? I think that's part of the problem, is that all of that water is concentrated, and it's basically creating a river that flows off of the property, as opposed to having it spread out.
It wouldn't flow off until the 42.
No, I understand that. No, I understand that.
And it started leaching in at whatever many gallons per minute it
Right,
leached in.
but this isn't quite sized for a 100-year storm, and we seem to be getting more and more of these huge, rain events. I think that's part of the problem. So I'm just curious. Would it make more sense to spread that the overflow out instead of?
Well, we could put maybe several of those. I don't think you'd want one wide one. Maybe we can put it in a couple of places.
Well, the problem with trying to spread out the overflow is that unless you put something that is very permanent and very hard, like concrete, in through there, water always finds the path of least resistance, and once it does, it's just going to continue to channelize. So it's up to the commission to discuss if they, want something that substantial to create a level spreader type of sheet flow type of thing for overflow. But I think having the low points in case of an overflow and being able to armor those so that we don't have erosion, I think that's kind of you need to have that. That's
Okay.
How much difference in height from is the overflow area from the parking lot itself?
Well, it's about from one end to the other. It's.
I'm talking, the two areas that you're going
Right
to
now, the grade change,
overflow.
we're like 6 inches, from between.
About 6 inches, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that's not really determined right now.
So you'd have if it failed, you'd have a 6-inch puddle in the back of the parking lot before it started to blow out over the top.
No, that's, I'm sorry.
How high would we build the berm?
Yeah.
So that we could build the berm up
whatever, yeah.
If we put a pile under the
Well, I guess
guardrail,
what
we
you're
could
talking
build
about
the berm up.
is from the top of the gravel to this opening here. Do we want,
Yeah.
so that we'd create a puddle back there, and then it would overflow.
Right.
So we could, I mean, if I'm, actually, I was thinking of making that level, but we could raise it a couple of inches. Here the berm would be 6 inches higher than the gravel.
So the
but-
berm's 6 inches and.
But this could be 2 or 3 inches, you know, and then it would all fill up back there and then overflow.
The other question I have is, what are you gonna do with the secret pipe that we, right here, this
Well-
baby?
Well, I don't know that it's secret, it's been there for a long, long time. We found it. Yes, so we did show a little outlet, outlet
Splash pad.
anyway, a little, just put riprap spreader there.
Yeah. Have you seen that? Have you seen that in full bloom?
Well, not the pipe in full, I've seen it flowing, but I haven't been here during the heavy storm.
You know,
Is there a method to size that splash pad that you guys would use based off the volume of water coming through? Or is there some way to maybe make it slightly concave so water will settle a little bit more there?
Well-
Any suggestions for that?
Yeah, there is, I think that's just an outlet, a flared outlet control that we had there, but we can put a squared area where it comes in and then it'll raise up.
Scour
and
hole.
Scour hole, yeah, thank you. Everybody,
So that outlet right now is actually depressed, so I don't know if over time, if the whole area is kind of filled in there or what's happened, but that outlet is actually below surface elevation, so you can see where, you know, kind of a hole has scoured out. So when they do put that riprap around, really all they'll need to do is kind of enlarge that bowl that it's down in, and then put the riprap in there, and that will actually, it actually has kind of a little scour hole naturally right now.
Yeah, the problem is that you're not slowing down the flow there.
Well, I think what's happening is that the flow is reconcentrating once it comes out of that pipe,
Yeah.
and then you're having impacts to the neighbors from it.
Yep. The other consideration, should these gutters, that are over, what we've got on the roof, what we call overflow gutters, should they be tied in somewhere? I mean,
Well, so I stopped out this afternoon and took a look at it, and a couple of the gutters don't look like they're getting much flow, and then there was 2 other gutters I looked at that looked like they're getting a amount of flow. Let's see what Ben and Callisto have for a plan with the roof leaders and that sort of thing, and if those roof leaders on the parking lot side really are overflow and they show that the other internal gutter system works properly or what have you, then if they're not contributing anything significant, then it's probably not worth the cost of making the applicant, you know, infiltrate those. I don't know, I know.
Yeah, they're all coming down near paved areas.
if they're
I
not
mean,
being
except
used,
for
I'm not asking them to be
on the left side.
Yeah, so it's flowing to the same spot anyway.
It's,
I mean,
and it's
yeah.
flowing to the same spot.
Yeah.
What we
Right.
can do, where one dumps out by the dumpster on the right side of the building, or left side of the building, we can make sure we stop any erosion, you know, bring it down to the paved area so it would flow.
Right, so maybe we make sure if it is getting considerable amount of flow, that is adding to our infiltration area, which isn't accounted for in the drainage calc. So then
not.
it might be useful to find some way to manage that.
Yeah, we'll find a way to manage it. We don't need it. I mean, we've like I said, we tried to put as much dry well up on the top of the site as possible, and we're limited. So those dry wells are definitely going to fill up because I have more than 1,000 square feet of roof going into them. So that's how, I mean, that's how you want to make sure we're using them.
Yeah.
So we have maybe 12,000 square feet going in there. But we'll just, and some of the roof leaders aren't even connected to the gutters. But we'll get that squared away, we'll address them,
Okay.
each one.
But one of the problems that we've had from the very beginning about those roof gutters is that nobody knows exactly where they're going. and nobody knows what the volume is. Ed just said it could be limited,
Oh, no, I know exactly where they're
Oh,
going.
yeah.
but in fact, it may not be limited, you don't know.
No, I
You
do,
said that
well,
at
we
the
both
beginning.
been on the roof.
No, I know where they're going.
But you don't know where the volume is relative to how much is being diverted into those.
So
That's number one. And number two, all of this water from that building is running across that parking lot. And yet nowhere on the plan do you have any oil water separator system.
Well, you don't need it for the roof.
Right, but it's running across the parking lot.
Well, no, most of the
So it's going
water
to be
is
picking up-
bypassing the parking lot and running out to the side of the property.
The runoff from 13,000 square feet of roof is not going through the 4-inch pipe. So some of it is coming through those drainage swales, down the pipes, and coming across the parking lot and picking up oils and materials from the parking lot that is not being treated. So that represents a violation because that material goes directly into other streams, other bodies of water. There should, with the amount of volume of water that you're displacing on that property, have an oil water separator in one of your diverter systems.
All the water that goes across the parking lot now, in the back, will go into this infiltration trench, and it gets trapped there.
For sediment. It takes out soils. It does not do anything for petroleum products. And that asphalt milling material that was used on the back section of that parking lot is an asphalt material. I just think from an engineering perspective, you should look at that.
Asphalt material in, that you think that there's a petroleum product in the millings?
That's what asphalt material is.
No, yeah, but once liquid asphalt solidifies, it doesn't go back. It's like when you pave a road, you're not adding petroleum to the road.
And you don't get any oils or greases off the cars.
Oh, off the cars? I mean,
That's why parking lots typically have oil water separators in them. You know that, you're an engineer.
this is the first that's been brought up
Yeah,
to me.
we don't,
I-
it's
we
not
went through
quite an
this-
oil water separator. You do something to remove the suspended solids, and it may pick that up. But we don't normally put a formal oil water separator. We'll do that at terminals and other places. Yeah.
Right, so this is redevelopment under the Wetlands Protection Act. So how does it meet the standards? I know we have that checklist in the filing. If it's, required for the standards, then it should be included, but we should look at that because it's redevelopment, so it's a little bit different, so.
The typical storm scepter system, I'm sure, has got an oil water separator in it.
It's got the ability, but it's not an oil water separator. That oil water separator is more than a term of art. It's something that's regulated. You have to have licensed operator to manage it. There, some oils could be removed from a system like that, the Vortechnics or one of these other storm filters, but really they're meant to remove suspended solids.
And have you come up with a final dimension before you leave the room?
Of what?
About what those drainage swales are gonna be like? Are they gonna be 2 feet by 2 feet, which is what's on the plan now?
No.
Or the 4 feet by, I think you mentioned earlier, 4 feet deep?
Oh, yeah,
No, no, no.
Stone, those
So,
are stone.
If you lift that up to the bottom left,
Yeah.
where you can see the bottom left, it shows a
Becky?
cross-section of it.
Yeah, sorry.
Sure.
Yeah,
On the bottom.
Bottom left.
bottom
yeah.
left.
Oh, this one.
There you go.
sorry.
Yeah, the other left.
So this trench
I thought it was all the way over.
there is 10 feet wide and 4 feet deep. It's gonna go
230 feet.
232 or 233 feet long along that parking lot when you show the other plan. So it's, you can see the elevation wise, it's over 4 feet deep, it's 10 feet wide, it's 230.
So this opening is shown at 24 inches, and now we're gonna make it 5 feet. You see the opening right there?
Okay.
So we're just gonna go 5 feet, which is half the length, so all that'll be gravel. All right, and then,
This is the plan that was provided today that we haven't seen
No.
until tonight.
No, they discussed it, they changed
well,
it tonight.
Yeah.
the prior plan had we were 4 wide. It's the same plan, we just, instead of having it 4 wide and concentrated in one area, we made it 2 wide and twice as long to run along the whole back. So this has been there. So what we were talking about, This area here is where we talked about having the pavement back sloped, so the water's coming from the right to this, and then we back slope this. That back slope in where the runoff is will be like, this will be 2 inches higher than this, so that the water will pond here, and then it'll overflow. Elsewhere, except for those 2 places where it overflows, there'll be a berm here, a curb, an asphalt curb. So the water can only go over in those spots where we have riprap to protect the slope.
Are you saying 2 inches?
Yeah,
Where the riprap overflows.
we're at the riprap, yeah, 2 inches. This way we'll have it'll pond.
And we'll still look at that.
Yeah.
We'll
Between the two of us.
we'll coordinate that, because I want to make sure that there's, I don't want it just to bypass the system and then go down the slope the way it kind of is doing now.
Oh, we can make it 3 inches. It doesn't really matter.
That's,
If we have to
Yeah.
increase it, it's fine.
That's fine.
I'd like to open it up to the audience. They've been sitting here patiently.
I just have a couple more comments. Chuck went over most of the things that
Yeah.
we've been discussing. A couple other things just wanted to add was thinking about winter time and how this system's gonna work. By increasing that 2 foot to 5 feet, I think that's going to help. But there's definitely gonna be maintenance that's involved. I know you included like a basic O&M plan in there. I think we should make sure it's very clear what kind of maintenance activities, how this is gonna function in the winter. We wanna make sure that it's not just gonna have hard packed snow over it, what they can do to do that. And then also, I'd like to see on the plan, snow storage area.
Yeah, we were gonna put that, as you come down the driveway, all the way over to the left.
Okay, and when that melts, it will still get to the infiltration in that location? I mean, obviously, all of that's gonna be heading this way, but we just wanna make sure we see that. And that's something that DEP will probably comment on.
All right. I'd like to open up to the audience for some comments.
Hello, my name is Chad Maremo, 7 Blueberry Lane, and also like to input Northeastern graduate of architecture and topographical studies. Directed through the board, but also a question to Burton Engineering. You did say that there was, 4,500 square foot volume control in that trench that's in the rear of the parking lot?
The volume of the trench is,
Okay, what is the requirement on what stone is actually used? Do you have a
well, we based it on
3/4?
3/4 stone. I mean,
Quarter, and that also takes into account that
the
3/4
voids,
stone
absolutely.
takes into almost
The void ratio,
66% of the void ratio.
Yep.
Rather than doing a lower section, that you could do a riprap, which is a little, riprap is a generic term, but go
I mean a
2
bigger
to
stone.
4, a bigger stone, and then put these, kind of like a silt barrier on top of that, and then proceed to the 3/4 stone. Would actually give you a little more volume control prior to having it crest over the back.
Well, we can make it longer too. 3/4 stone is the best to use because the bigger stone creates more stress points. So this is generally what we use. You could use a 2-inch stone, but again, this is common. We determined the volume and we designed this to a volume we wanted to meet. It's not like we're trying to, how much volume do we get out of what we have? No, we designed this for the volume. So we figured out the volume, and this is designed to it.
And that's actually as a tentative thing of a fresh lay stone. But you're also aware of the state that's mandated in different states, that after 3/4 stone settles, it does consider less volume and less volume as it settles.
Well, I don't know about that, but it's self-compacting when you put it in, so to speak. It's and the voids. It's in order for to settle, the ground you'd have to actually see the ground settling, and that doesn't normally happen.
And actually indirectly too, because actually, if you actually see with the force of water, a running river with a stone across a parking lot will move it at a presentable thing. So you're saying
Correct.
Ground settling, water simply going into this trench is going to be a natural compaction as it is without any equipment on top.
Right. I don't envision that to be a problem. I understand what you're saying. This is all confined. The stone is confined on 4 sides.
I think too, if you have 5 feet of exposure here, if you get settling of that gravel, you're actually gonna see the level of that go down, and that could be, filled, yeah, with more gravel. yeah.
Right.
I remember what my question was.
You'll think of it on the way out.
Or I'll make it up as I go. Buck Smith, 9 Blueberry Lane. Lord have mercy. So if I'm to understand it properly, as the water comes down and hit, the catch basins that are there, or that appear to be there, are gonna exist. Right, we're not doing anything with those.
The only catch basin, well, there's catch basin,
Catch basin loosely, because there's grates on it. But I guess what I'm saying is, what's gonna keep the water from traveling out the mystery pipe before it hits the trench?
the inlet for that pipe, I'm going backwards here. You're talking about this pipe here?
Yep.
There's an inlet up here. That inlet, it collects the rainwater over here, and I know that, we surveyed this property in 2012, that inlet was there. So it's been there probably from when the,
Okay, that didn't answer the question. What are you gonna do to mitigate
Not
the
doing
water
anything.
as it hits there?
no,
It's because it's gonna go out the drain first before it hits your 230 foot.
no, it's not, it bypasses. That water doesn't go into this drain. So that's existing, that was always there, it's been there for a long time, and that water continues out.
So what happens to the water? How does the water get into that pipe that comes out
Oh,
down below? Where does that water
this
come
one?
from? Yep.
That inlet there, if you go there, and I've been there during rain, all this parking lot here, it runs right where the hand is.
Okay.
It runs there. Some of it bypasses, but it does collect and run into that inlet.
So my question is, it's gonna hit that drain before it hits the swale that
Right.
you're putting in.
The purpose of this is that was all done and approved a long time ago. This area here, the hatched area, what we're doing is compensating to change from, it was a gravel parking lot to a paved parking lot. So we're putting in this trench and the dry wells to compensate for an increase in runoff due to the change in the surface of that parking lot. We're not addressing the front of the building.
One of the problems is that pipe.
Okay, but it's been there for a long
Go to
time.
the pipe and follow the water trail from that pipe into my property, into Chad's property.
Okay, I've been there after storms and during storms. I could see the water coming out, but, on small storms, I did not see a river leaving this property.
I believe Chad's got evidence. I believe you and I have walked the property.
Yeah, we've seen it.
You've seen it.
Yeah.
So there is a substantial amount of water that comes from that drain out that pipe
Correct.
into our properties.
No.
And-
Buck, you need
and-
to use the mic.
Oh, sorry.
People at home want to hear what you have to
You can
say.
pull it out and hold it by hand so it'll get up to your height.
Buck, I think one thing too, just to add, is that we're not gonna have the water coming down the slope right where the pipe is too. So the water from the back parking lot was coming down right where that pipe outlets, correct? Is that where it was coming
Yeah.
down the slope right there?
Right.
That water's all gonna get trapped. So what's only gonna be coming out of this pipe is historically what has been over the years. So I think that it's been exasperated by what's coming down the slope here too, adding to that. So they're gonna put a splash pad here, which will help kind of slow down the water. There will be still water coming out from the existing parking lot, but I think what we'll see is that this minus this won't be as bad as what it is. I think that's why we've seen, since what you said about 2012, the changes there, it's when this went in. So this pipe was always here with the parking lot, but I think that we're addressing this and infiltrating it, it's gonna reduce that extra volume. That's been what's causing the problem there too. That's,
That's a good analogy.
And one other question, if you'll come up. I believe the dry wells are gonna drain over, where am I?
the dry wells are right here, yeah.
Okay, those are gonna drain over the edge. And,
Yes, that's what happens now.
and go where?
That's what happened. It goes into the woods over here. I've watched it, on this side of the property. It drains.
It's gonna infiltrate.
Well, first, yeah, the dry wells will infiltrate. It's the overflow that will go through.
And so about how much overflow, do you have any idea? Once they're full, or we don't know unless we have specific?
No. I mean.
We don't know unless we have specific.
We can calculate what that is, but the point was to compensate for the additional runoff due to the change in the pavement. So that's been ongoing. We will reduce it. I should say, and I didn't say it before, with the addition of this trench to handle the 100-year storm, we significantly reduced the 10, the 25-year storms. The runoff from this property is significantly reduced because we're overcompensating, because we're designing this for the 100-year storm. So it's, like I said, it's over-designed for a 2-year storm. Normally, we put a detention basin and we meter the water out, so we can control the flow of water.
Right.
Here, we're trapping it. So a 2 years rain, you know, a lot of it'll get trapped here and won't come out. So for the more popular, or the more, the more regular storms, there'll be a big reduction. It's only the 100-year storm. We designed for the 100-year storm, so by designing for the 100-year storm, we've overcompensated for the lesser storms, or the more frequent storms.
The town standard is what, a 50 or a 100-year, or is that predicated by the project?
I don't know, for a new project or versus an old project, what the standard is.
Well, we normally do the 210, 25, and 100. That's what we normally design for.
Last but not least, the rain leaders. I understand they're going to oversize them, they're going to check them out. Do you have any idea where they would end up, and is that trench capable of handling
Well,
the rain leaders?
yeah, the downspouts that are there, I mean, the one in this corner isn't even connected anymore. There's one over here, there's one in the back. And like I said, I've been up on the roof. Unfortunately, I don't know why I didn't take pictures when I was on the roof. But they just collect, they're just there to protect the doors should this water overflow. But we will get them to the pavement. They will flow across the pavement towards this trench.
And what are they going to add to flow in the parking lot?
Well, that's existing. It's an existing situation. They're not adding, they're already there. So, but there's a little erosion that takes place over here by the dumpsters, and we'll control that. We'll fix that.
And can I just add, you know, in working with Burton, if we find that there is significant flow from those, you know, we'll work on that. Because one of the things that Becky and I were talking about was trying not to have concentrated flows within the parking lot, which in regards to your comments with having catch basins and hydrodynamic separators and this sort of thing, this is not a real conventional system, and we're in a redevelopment type of project. And if we infiltrate by means of collecting the stormwater with catch basins and this sort of thing, so everything starts to now get piped, you now have to have certain grading within the parking lot, which means the back of the parking lot can no longer really be flat or level. So you're no longer really spreading the stormwater out, and it's going to become more concentrated. So I like the idea of just having this really long trench, and we're trying to eliminate any concentrated flow within the parking lot, because the concentrated flow is the stuff that's going to pick up sediment and that sort of thing and cause maintenance issues with the type of system. So some of that stuff is kind of up to the commission too, as to when it's a redevelopment project and, you know, you're treating the stormwater to the maximum extent practicable, which is why I'm not necessarily saying like you must do this or you must do that. These are kind of recommendations and, you know, things to discuss with the commission. So with that being said, yeah, I'm not crazy about having concentrated roof runoff going down and flowing through the parking lot to the infiltration system, because I think that's just going to cause problems for Ben in the long run. And
Chuck, can you assure me, though, that the roof runoff, as it is with the cut off, is not adding to the pipe this pipe right here?
Oh,
No.
yeah, no, I don't believe, the only thing,
Okay.
so, you know, we've all been out there and looked at it and everything. That pipe there is just collecting runoff from the catch basin that's in that crazy pothole thing in the
Yeah.
driveway there.
That's the only place.
I didn't see any of the roof leaders or anything that were going to that.
The
or
roof
anything like
leaders
that.
all come, I'll double check on the front, but all the roof leaders that come on the sides and the back are at a much lower elevation than than any.
Ones on the back, obviously,
Yeah, well, that's where most of them are. They're on the side, there's one in the back, there's two on the other side.
But by your own admission, you can have them all the way around and the flow can be going out of one.
Well, no, but there's roof drains in the center of the building.
Right.
There's one roof drain in the center and there's two up towards the front. And all the water is piped and goes out that way. So, yeah, you're right. Would I have designed it with a 4-inch pipe? No, I would have designed it with a larger pipe.
So the existing roof has a couple different elevations. When you go up there, the largest part of the roof goes into.
Sorry.
When you go up to the roof, the largest part of the existing roof of the building goes into that 1 4-inch drain, which
This
was.
whole area here.
There's some smaller areas of like ROMs add-ons from the 50s and 60s. Those have drains also, but they're for very smaller add-on pieces. The larger goes into that one drain.
And everyone understands that these are flat roofs, right? Which is why you have the internal roof drains and everything.
So I think one of the key elements to this is having O&M done on that drain to keep it open, right?
On which drain?
The drain that's in the middle of the roof.
Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, like I said, when we went up there were leaves around it, so, and there was like 2 inches of water on the roof. Cleared away the leaves and
Yeah.
that's how I followed it out, you know.
But as purchasing an existing building, that roof takes thousands of gallons of water before it actually goes to the side. If you go up there, you can see a lot of puddle. Even when Callisto and I were up there, and you saw that we have grates around the drains now, so when you look at the grate, even if it builds up with pine needles or leaves or whatever, that water still stays on the on the roof of the building. And if anybody wants to go up there, there's a permanent ladder. So, if you want to go, Becky's dying to do it, I can tell, but if you want to go up there, you can see. If you want to go up like the day after a rainstorm, go take a look at it.
Just do it before you have a drink, not after.
I do have to address one more question where it was saying that because the pipe is existing, and this is a simple yes or no answer, but isn't it illegal to dispose of any water into outside properties besides your own when you affect other people?
Well,
And that there is no proof. I have a photo right here with a 6-inch waterfall off the front of my parking lot and a 9-photo track all the way up to the pipe with a 56-second video showing how much volume is coming out of that pipe, since nobody says that much water is coming out.
It's an existing condition, I'm sorry to say, but it's been there for a long time. It's been there.
Is it legal now saying you
Yes.
cannot dispose any water into other properties?
If you're doing something new,
Simple,
you
yes or no?
you could say that, no, if it's existing condition, yes.
So if it's existing, you can dispose water into other people's property?
Yeah, it's like a strain.
Legal.
Yes, it's a strain, because it's there. No, I'm just saying, the way the water flows, the water always flowed from this property down that way. They channeled it because the Main Street's a lot higher so the water always came down here. So water always ran off from this property to the back. That pipe was put in a long time ago, so it's an existing condition. So yes, it predates regulations. Today, we would do the same thing, but we'd have a big detention basin up here to control the whole parking lot.
So as your experienced professional, you're saying it is legal because it's predated?
Correct.
To have water, a running river, destroy trees, properties, grass, and who knows what else is long-term destruction.
And when you're alongside a river and you're in the floodplain, the same thing happens. But the thing is, this has been an existing condition for a long time. As Becky said, maybe it's been exacerbated because of the paving of the back lot and all that water coming down alongside it. But you've had to have this condition for 10 years? 12 years?
No.
Well, then it's not the stream, then it's not the pipe, because that pipe's been there for, who knows?
May I approach and
years.
show a photo of the waterfall?
No, you can show it to me, but what I'm saying is that you're asking about the pipe. It's an existing condition.
This is,
Okay.
this is existing, non-destructive condition. This is a photo of the stream coming from the back of Teddy G's, followed with other commission people, going right through my property with a cascading waterfall destroying my yard.
So what we're doing here is we're addressing the additional runoff from this parking lot.
Right.
If 5 years ago, you didn't have a situation with this pipe, then that shouldn't happen. Well, whenever this building, well, anyway, so that pipe's been there. It may have been exacerbated by the additional pavement, and that's what we're correcting.
Tom Moore, 201 Main Street, the woods next door. Is all the roof water going to go into your collection system?
No, a lot of the roof water right now runs off to the side, on
Yeah,
the right
that's
side.
flowing into my property.
Yeah, that's, you've,
You put a 3-inch pipe in there, and it's pouring into my property up above. That's another issue that you're creating.
I don't know how long it's been there.
Recent.
Are you talking about from the roofs or parking lot or the road?
No, from the roof. The gutters are all tied into a T, and then the T takes it across underneath and then out onto my property.
Is that what you're addressing with the dry wells, though? Is that
Well,
what
you're
you're-
not addressing that, right? 'Cause
No,
that's not part of this,
Okay.
this problem.
So what happens is, I didn't think we had, we are reducing the runoff that comes from those, that pipe.
You're
because it's
redirecting.
going- What?
You're redirecting the
No,
problem.
I'm not. I'm putting it into 2 dry wells.
No, I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about the roof.
The roof water is going into 2 dry wells.
So you're gonna eliminate that pipe that's coming up?
No, the
onto
pipe
my
is
property.
still there.
Right, the gutter pipe we're talking about?
The pipe that comes off the building, the white PVC pipe that comes over is going into those 2 dry wells.
It will be going into those 2.
Right, we're adding the dry wells to intercept the pipe.
Right, you're gonna stop. This is designed to handle the roof
No.
and the parking lot.
We're designed to mitigate the parking lot, and we're using the roof.
So the
as part
roof,
of the
you're
mitigation.
where's that water gonna go?
The roof water continues to flow where it does today, except that we've introduced dry wells to take away some of the water. It's 600 cubic feet of water will go into the dry
Your
wells.
gutter's
before
coming
those-
down, you go into a PVC pipe, the pipe goes into my property. Are you gonna eliminate that with this design?
No,
So what are you gonna do? Nothing?
no, we are. I'm telling you, we're putting dry wells to intercept water, so.
Right, but you're not, but it's legal to dump water onto my property.
I can't answer that. I don't know how long that's been there.
Reason, you say?
So, what he's showing, see, I've been an engineer so long, I think everybody can read plans perfectly, but they can't. So, the pipe that you're talking about is going to go into this
Right,
system,
that's
which
what
is
I'm
going to be
addressing.
placed there.
Right, you're gonna eliminate that problem,
Right. But
but
what-
the
at
gutter's
least
gonna
the-
come down
right.
and go into this.
So that can hold, I don't know how many thousand gallons of water. But what he's saying is that when that 1,000 gallons does eventually fill up, there will be a pipe out the side of it.
Right.
After it fills, as an overflow.
Right.
But the pipe that you're talking about will be eliminated and it will
That's
be going into
what
that.
I didn't understand. Okay, very good, thank you.
So I'm gonna flog the horse here. I just wanna make sure, we've all been so affected, the neighbors, by the amount of water and the flow of water. I wanna make sure that that pipe isn't gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
Because right now, the pipe is a big problem. Right, granted, we get sheet flow off of it, off the parking lot as well, but the volume of water pouring out of that pipe in a normal rain is crazy. And you've all seen it.
I've seen it.
And I think we're only gonna get one shot at this. So let's, I mean, and I'm not trying to place any more undue burden on the landowner. However,
Yeah.
This is the largest sedimentation basin in the whole
You know what, I
town of
understand,
Sturbridge.
and I understand
It's the
that.
biggest one ever designed in the whole town of Sturbridge, for that size parking lot. Biggest one ever, it's gonna cost me $50,000. You don't wanna put any more burden.
Was there additions to the splash pad that are minor that could kind of help improve down there? I mean, we talked about that a little bit earlier, but.
You know, we've addressed it, we've talked about, but it's a concern from my point of view. But if it existed there, and there hasn't been any change, then if they go in and berm it, and we do the other things have to work. If they don't work, we go back.
So we do have that option.
Yeah, we could continue to do this for the next 20 years.
Oh, my God.
I just didn't wanna make sure, I wanna make sure that this wasn't an end all to be all, and once we're done, we're done.
If it doesn't work, you know, it doesn't work, then we have to wait.
Mr. Chairman, I'm afraid I can't last 20 years.
No, I don't think I'll be working, I didn't say I'm gonna be working for a number of hours.
Steve told me he was gonna make sure that it happened.
So, I mean, I think we all get lost with this, but this design is designed to handle the problem we got, so that should work, yes?
Yeah, well, this is, the only thing that's changed on the property with regard to is that gravel lot was paved.
Right, and
And so
so,
this is-
but the
this
point
is
is, this
different.
trench you dug here and these additions he's putting in will handle the existing problem. So the other thing with this, I mean, we're gonna get some overflow, obviously.
Oh, yeah, well.
So, I mean,
yes.
you know, we're all, right, growing up here, so that's what happens. It's not gonna, the problem is, it's all going to one place, it's saturated. I think with this system, we'll take most of that away, which will help the land to recover and absorb some of, if there's a worst case scenario, some overflow. So this should work.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, and then he's gonna take care of any gutter problems coming off and remove and put it where it belongs.
It's gonna be put into that system.
Right, that was my concern, is that the root water be taken care of.
Anybody else like to speak on the issue? I'm gonna close the hearing if anybody,
Well, we didn't,
we aren't doing anything on it.
right.
We didn't open.
We didn't open the hearing.
I'd like to just summarize a little bit, you know, I'm very impressed with what you brought. I think that you really have a plan that, from all appearances with the discussion that we had, follow the flexes that we talked about, go the right way. It's a really good plan. You know.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
Do you have a timeline?
Well, the next meeting. Yeah, in a month, yeah.
Will it be done by winter?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes?
So,
I'm laughing with you, I'm not laughing at you.
so we come to the meeting next month.
Right.
By that time, CME Engineers, that's consulting for the town, and Callisto Burton, who I hired, we have a final formal plan
Right.
with a few adjustments that we made tonight and
Yeah.
whatever.
Right.
When that, this is what I don't have any experience with. When that goes to the DEP, that final plan, it's just added to the notice of intent we already applied for, correct?
Right, you don't have.
What's the approximate time that we get that answer back from DEP so that I can go to fabrication and construction?
We should have a file number soon. I mean,
Yes.
obviously you have to submit
Yeah.
the revised materials to them as well. They look at it, they give any questions, comments at that time, but they'll still most typically issue a file number. Usually we have one before the meeting.
Yep.
We didn't get one for this.
So they're
We
not
should
gonna come
definitely-
with one in November and then I'm gonna rush to get it done before winter?
No, we should have a file number soon.
Yeah, okay, it'd be a surprise to you if it got delayed that long.
You know.
Okay. Okay.
And then, you know, they have to approve it, we issue a permit. We can start working to draft the permit language for it, provided that, you know, the plan and the O&M plan's revised too. I don't want to forget that, to address the winter conditions and everything. Provided that's adequate and they approve it, they can turn around and issue a permit. It's a 10-day appeal period.
But then there's that 10-day appeal period.
Right, so we're looking at, you know, beginning of September, mid-September getting started, which is
Yeah.
probably a realistic time. So, Ben, what would you anticipate your construction period for this is?
So, For the precast pieces for the runoff, it would probably be maybe 3 or 4 weeks of, fabrication time and curing, and then securing the material. But construction time, we're only talking about 2 weeks. So, all said and done, like a 5-week period from when we're okayed to complete it.
I don't want,
Thank you all very much for coming. If there's any questions, call Becky and.
Continuation.
no, because
We
we
didn't
didn't open
open
the
it.
public
We
hearing,
didn't
so we
open
just had
it.
discussion.
Oh, that's right, because there was no file number.
So we're all set.
So is the next meeting going to be a public hearing, or is that pending on?
Yeah, we'll open a public hearing. We need the documentation.
They didn't have the right documentation to begin, so we could only have a discussion, we couldn't take a vote. But that's part of DEP, that wasn't them.
This was.
DEP has not issued a
we had
file number
public
yet.
hearing, Because I think we made a lot of progress.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think we'll be at a point where we won't take that much time to approve it at the next meeting. That's my opinion.
And as Becky already indicated, we should have the DEP file number before our next meeting. So that greases the wheels.
Thank you very much.
One more question and request. By the next meeting, can we see some sort of calculation of what that volume on the bottom of the pipe? They did say that there was the depression, but also something to concrete, rather than say, oh yeah, we're just gonna make a square with the depression, something of saying what that volume of water would contain at the bottom of the hill.
I don't know
I don't
Ask
think
the
we have to-
engineers.
yeah.
I don't know if that would, Burton could certainly provide a volume there, but when we walk the site, it looks like the groundwater is essentially almost at the surface down
Yeah.
below the parking lot. So if you excavated anything down in there, I don't know, 60% of the year, it might be full of water to begin with, so then you get a rainstorm, it's like pouring water into a bathtub that's already full of water. It's just, you pour something in, it's gonna come right out.
But, oh yes, but is there something that's gonna hold 50 gallons of water, 100 gallons of water?
Well, that's what I'm saying, it's not really gonna hold much water at all, because if we dig, if Ben digs anything in there, I think it's gonna be full of water most of the year.
The idea is, instead of the water flying out of the pipe, it sort of rises and flows out. So it's not, it slows down the velocity to reduce erosion.
Slowing it down and spreading it out versus it coming right out and channelizing.
Thank you all for coming. Now at
8:15.
8:15, request for determination of pole 17-1 relocation Main utility. Near 65 Main Street.
Hi, thank you very much.
Mr. Goodwin, you should wait for a couple of minutes while they excavate.
Nah, I'm trying to get things moving here.
Yeah, but people can't hear anything at home, Ed. Come on.
Well, I'll read it again then. Request for determination of applicability, pole 17-1 relocation.
Nice to meet you, thank you.
Main Street utility easement near 657 and 665 Main Street, represented by BSC for applicant Mass Electric. Is anybody here?
I'm here.
All right.
This is such a small project, I didn't think it was necessary that BSC sent a representative out here. I said I'd be happy to present it for them. I do have the legal ad and the abutter notification receipts, so we can open the public hearing. All right, so this is a pole relocation. Let me switch my notes here so I don't read the wrong thing here. All right, so this is, if we go back, and I apologize because I didn't scan this in color, I didn't realize till afterwards. So we're on Main Street, we're across from Galileo. This is where Heel's going in right here. Familiar with the site? On our way to Brimfield. We have an existing utility pole you're next. We're almost there. We didn't skip you. You can sit down. Existing pole is here. In a wetland, it's rotting. They want to move it both within their right-of-way, move it up on the shoulder of the road, out of the wetland.
Good.
So here's our photos. There it is in the wetland. Stake here. This is the location.
Beautiful.
Their RDA included their BMPs. They use their standard things for erosion controls. It's not a big excavation area. It's very minor. Yeah.
Becky, are they just gonna cut off the existing pole like a
No,
couple?
so they're gonna cut it to grade. Large pieces will be lifted out with a utility truck, not going in the wetland. Smaller pieces will be moved by hand. All equipment involved in the removal will be staged from the buffer zone. The cut pole will not be dragged to the wetland. So I think they're gonna leave that bottom portion.
part.
That way they're not excavating in the wetland. I
Right.
think it's probably most of rotted anyways, so.
Yeah.
So,
All right, any discussion?
disturb fewer than 5 feet.
All right.
This is
We're
in,
gonna have to have soil.
well, this is an RDA.
Yeah, it's an RDA.
So my recommendation would be a negative 2B, obviously not proving a delineation. Positive 5, it's not exempt pursuant to our local bylaw, so we're reviewing it under the bylaw. This is going to be a negative number 5, which is
Yes.
under the Wetlands Protection Act. It's exempt pursuant to the Wetlands Protection Act. There's 2 different exemptions. One is the new pole, and one is the removal of the, working on the existing one. I don't think you need me to cite the exemption, but, so that would be my recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we close the public hearing.
Second it?
Discussion? All in favor?
And, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the pole movement and give it 5 and 5, with a special because it is just a pole replacement, as described in their official application.
Second it?
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? All right,
Just ask that you sign my determination so I can issue that tomorrow.
holding me up.
You notice no comment about the hole digging, because we've all seen the giant auger at the back end of Verizon trucks.
Yeah, I know.
You're up. It's your turn now.
We are at 8:50.
Thank you very much.
Request for determination.
If you'd like,
Wackapon Road.
you can
to
sit right there,
garage.
there's 2 mics.
Enbeck J, represented by BC Custom Homes LLC.
We couldn't make it easier for you.
We appreciate that.
Oop.
We do ask that you introduce yourselves, please.
Oh, yeah. Robert Catone from
You don't have
BC
to
Custom
stand
Home.
up.
Huh? All right, that don't work?
Sit down, that's
Oh,
all.
stay down. All right, Robert Catone from BC Custom Homes. I'm the contractor for installing this new garage for Justin Manbeck.
Justin Manbeck. I recently just purchased 95 Walker Pond Road.
All right, so we received the RDA for the installation of the garage. So when we went on our site visit, we noticed that there had been some clearing on the side. Kind of lot was put down on the embankment, close to the resource area. So we, at that time, after the site visit, I reached out to the property owner, went out the next day, met the contractor out there. We've got a lot of that cleaned out of there, wood chips on the embankment. So I can show pictures from when we first kind of went out there. So we got kind of 2 things going on. We got the, we're looking at the RDA for the garage installation. New property owner wasn't aware, cut down a couple trees in front of the house, and there was actually a couple dead trees here too, which when they were on the bank end, it was like 2 dead red pines, and there's actually a large oak or maple, I'm not sure, but when it was cut, you could see the stump was rot in the middle. The contractor kind of pointed that out to me when I was out there. But do you want me to show the photos just so you can see?
Yep.
Okay. So, and they immediately, next day when I went out there, that night, they actually cleaned up all the debris. Yep, and he actually had put some wood chips down because there was water and sedimentation, coming off the hillside going down below, and he put the wood chips in to kind of help hold that back. So I was like, I told him, I'm like, well, you probably should have left the wood chips, you know, so he actually brought some more wood chips in on that slope there too, so that was good, but.
And I put 4 bales of hay as well.
Yeah, we got some bales
As she
down there
asked for.
too, added in there. So, right, so we went out there, 'cause there's only a couple commissioners with us, so we'll just show them, you know, so this is kind of the location where the garage will go. We saw it spray painted out there, and Bob, I'll let you talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, you can't see the spray paint,
Huh?
You can see it when we were out there.
Well, yeah.
I can actually kind of see it.
That is the
Becky, if you
existing.
were taller when you took that.
I know. Start taking your own pictures.
Oh, no, you don't want me taking pictures.
So, right, there was a lot of kind of brush pushed over, but you can see a lot of the, you know, erosion going down the hillside there, which you don't see in the new pictures too, so. This is also the slope going down where a lot was kind of pushed over. I mean, I think there was, obviously you could see there's some historic filling probably from the previous property owner over there too, of brush and whatnot.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, so, and this is closer, so in front here is Walker Pond Road. There's a culvert that carries an intermittent stream down here.
Oh.
All of this has been removed, all within upland area, so when I went back, there's no impact to resource area down there. There's actually like a stone
Thank you.
wall.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I really did not, you know, I didn't know, you know what I mean? I hired a tree company.
Yeah, it wasn't me.
I know, Bob, that's not what I heard.
So once it was brought to our attention, we jumped on it right away.
Yeah, so this is the next day I went out. It was a significant improvement from the next day. You know, just a few, but, so I went back out today, this afternoon, and took a few more pictures, so you can, so you can see the difference here, see the wood chips, and it's kind of bermed up a little bit. I mean, this looks like it was probably all open, even when you look at the aerial photos, was already kind of driveway area at that time. I mean, it's
And you
still
have a
pile of-
resource area in your backyard.
I know.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, so I did ask one section when I first went out there, this looked like it was kind of steep, there was a lot of soil there, I asked them to put the bales in. It actually probably looks okay right now, but we can,
does look- but we
yeah, we
haven't
can
had
leave them
much,
there
you know,
with
yeah.
the wood chips and everything. So right, there's a good cover of wood chips on this embankment. And then, so this is where, you know, it looks like they, and you can see it in the old aerial photos too, that someone kind of, I thought it was a driveway, remember we went by it and I was gonna pull up and I was like, I don't know if that is, but you can see in the old aerial photos that someone was using it as a driveway, and then right before he bought this property, the septic was replaced within the yard, and that's how the contractor got up with the truck, so it kind of destabilized it a little bit.
They brought up with a big excavator and stuff, which I didn't own the property at the time, so I had no say. I just stopped in and saw what they were doing, kind of thing, so.
Yeah, so they were using this to get up. So it's a, I mean, it's a, you know, you can see it's washing out a little bit. You can see it's kind of getting over here, which is closer to stream. Actually, when I was out there today, I was thinking that maybe you don't need the straw bales where they are, and it might actually be beneficial to move them over here, or even just get like a waddle in, you know, while they're doing all the work up there. Obviously, when we have, you know, you're excavating for the garage, we'll have some additional erosion control measures in. But I thought it looked really good. I walked down, there's nothing, you know, nothing in the brook here. You can't see anything coming down. There's a, you know, a lot of leaves here, maybe some historic leaf dumping on the side from before, but no sediment getting down towards the resource area there. So this is looking up. You can just kind of see where it's washing down in this area, but.
So are we approving a garage here?
So, right, we're talking about, yeah, the garage, and then.
Do you have a
if
plan for one?
Yes. And then also, you know, you feel comfortable. I think he's done a good job fixing that. He kind of knows that's, you know, a no-touch area without approvals now. We've talked about that. So here's the
100%.
house. Here's the, you know, the driveway coming in. That's where that other little kind of driveway is. This is where the garage will be, which, you know, it's at about, probably about, without doing like an actual measurement, just looking at the aerials, you know, around 90 to 100 feet. So it's the outer extent of, you know, the 100-foot Wetlands Protection Act buffer zone. I wouldn't say it's outside of it for the RDA. I would just probably recommend that we condition it with a negative number 3.
Is that 30 by 36?
Yes. Yep. And that is within, do you want me to pull up the photo again of where it is, or?
I know already.
Okay, and so are you excavating like a full
you need
foundation,
to
or is
get
it
it
a slab?
4-foot foundation,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Soils removed off-site when you do that, or?
Correct.
Do you need to stockpile anything? You can,
No, we're not
but
gonna
you-
stockpile
okay.
anything, no.
What about roof runoff? Roof runoff from the garage?
Roof?
Roof runoff, rain.
Oh, runoffs, put gutters in it, and almost
No, we
thinking
should,
we're gonna take it,
You got a pointer up there, that little black thing in front of you, Justin, yeah, that's a pointer if Bob wants to use it.
yeah.
high technology, man.
Actually, I think we'd probably put a downspout here and back here.
Can we make a suggestion to you?
Yes.
Don't.
Don't put
Don't.
it, just,
You're heavily treed. All you're gonna be doing every single fall is cleaning out those gutters.
clean out the gutters, just leave
But
the
if you put a
gutters,
drip strip,
put a drip strip around the,
a
around.
foot wide,
Yeah.
maybe 2 feet wide, a minimum of 18 inches deep,
Deep with
fill it
stone.
with very fine gravel, not big crushed stone, fine gravel, small stuff,
Small,
half-inch
like
maybe.
half-inch minimum, yeah.
It'll take care of all of your problems, and you won't have to clean out the gutters.
I like it. I'm fine with that.
Just a suggestion.
Yeah.
So, can I ask a question?
Do we have would like to make a motion?
Steve wants to ask a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think as part of this, I don't know that this is working. So that stream's here, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, it kind of goes this way.
Oh,
Okay,
It's not,
like that?
it's not running parallel, it's
Okay.
going this way, so.
Yeah, so can we get this this area vegetated that's close to that stream where the, because right now there's like a driveway here, is that,
Mhm.
Yeah, good point.
just as part of this, would you be willing to
Yeah,
put some
I have no-
some shrubs or something just to stabilize this area? Because right now,
Could I do grass? Because it's, the problem is, the previous owner, I think what they got was sweepings from the town, and they put it in the driveway, and I don't know what's gonna grow there. So the guy that's why
It's really fine.
it's very, I think he got it from the town for free, because they just used it to dump
well,
there.
but that's exactly the stuff that we don't want to end up in
No.
the stream.
But I was wondering if we hydro seeded it with grass, that might actually grow on it, I don't know.
I guess I'm fine with that, yeah, I see what you mean.
But if instead of that, in that area, if you put shrubs in it and just use regular old-fashioned mulch, then you wouldn't have to mow it.
Well, I mean, it's kind of, you can see there's
It's a big area.
There was
grass already
grass
there.
before the septic.
Oh.
went in. So they drove up and down that thing a bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
with
looks like
big
it's really torn up, so.
Yeah, so there was all grass over there until that septic went in.
So
It
you're-
doesn't look like asphalt milling, Stephen.
No.
Definitely not
You're-
asphalt.
It looks
You're-
like road sweepings.
Yeah, your plan is
Could be road sweeping.
your plan is to mow that then, to have a yard there?
I was gonna have that all grass.
Yeah.
I guess I'm okay with that. It looks like it's gonna be tough to mow because it's so rough, but.
I've realized that I've already put it once.
It looks better than my yard already.
It's not an easy property to mow and weed whack.
You have one of those rock-throwing mowers?
Yeah.
And just as a further comment, I would say, don't, in the future, don't dump clippings and stuff off the side, where the previous owner or, whoever was
Yeah.
was dumping the stuff down the hillside, we want to
Not do that.
not do that.
Okay.
That's it. Mr. Barnacle, would you like to close the public hearing?
I would like to close the public hearing, Mr. Chairman. I make that motion.
Second.
Have a second? Discussion? All in favor?
And secondly, I would like to make a motion that we approve the plan as submitted under the 2 caveats that Becky has already indicated earlier.
+5 and -5?
Yep. No, not a -5. It should be a -3. We're not inside the,
Okay.
Correct, we're in the 100-foot
yeah.
approximate buffer zone, so. if
It's
you consider
close.
Number 3, it's conditioning it.
Okay.
Now, you had mentioned drip strips, is that something you're just making as a recommendation, or you want that as one of your conditions? Just wanna make sure.
I think it should be one of the conditions, please.
And then we'll have erosion controls in place, and then when you hydro seed, I think that, just one of those straw wattles up here, kind of maybe directing some of
Yeah.
the flow to the wood chips would be useful. It helps stabilize that, and then you don't have to go back and do it again, so probably just add that in
I have
there.
a question on that. So digging a trench, putting in the stone, it doesn't need a runoff for that. It's just gonna let it go into the channel and stay there.
Yeah, and it,
It's not like I'm putting a perimeter drain in.
no,
We gotta take
it
somewhere.
actually gets absorbed
It's
into,
gonna catch and absorb.
that's why you make it a minimum of 18 inches
Yeah.
deep.
Okay, I know exactly what I just didn't know how far you wanted it to be with that.
Yeah.
So it's just gonna go
It should take care of
around the
everything.
garage and that's it.
It's only a 36 by 36 structure.
Yeah, 30 by 36, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not much of a deal, yeah.
We have a lot of details on other plans if you want to look at one or two.
I second it.
You second it?
Yep.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would you sign this, please?
Sign it up. How you doing? Scott, you waiting out there, or you
Timing.
just a lucky timer? What, little both, okay. Well, they're up, right? You
Yep.
don't have anything else?
Yep.
No?
If you'd introduce yourselves, please, gentlemen.
Yes, well, Donald O'Neill, I'm a lawyer in Worcester with an office at 688 Pleasant Street, here this evening on behalf of 508 International. With me is Russ Jennings, who's a principal in 508. And what I'd like to, make a statement initially that we do object to Mr. Chidester and Mr. Barnacle participating in this meeting. It's up to them. We feel it's a conflict of interest, given their involvement as personal parties in an appeal of the Charlton Conservation Commission approval of an order of conditions for the same property, which was subject to a DEP appeal, which was upheld on a superseding order. And we feel that this is a clear conflict in terms of their participation. That's for them to decide, but we want to make it clear on the record that we have that objection, and it's up to them to do whatever they want to do.
Also furthermore on that point, we have had a no trespass order on Mr. Barnacle.
You have not had a no trespass order on me.
And that is,
Let him speak, David,
that,
then you can speak.
that is through the Sturbridge Police Department, and I'd be more than willing to supply your board with that information. He has been on the property impersonating the Conservation Commission agent at the time, being Glenn Colburn. And every time I've come before this board, I said, I will not be bullied by a person in their professional existence as a municipal employee, being Mr. Barnacle. Yet, he sits here and writes enforcement actions against my business and the property. So,
There is a no trespass order against me that was brought by Ann Salou. It was brought to the Sturbridge Police Department, and there is a copy of it in my records across the street at Town Hall. This has nothing to do with 508. This has something to do with the placement of a structure in a wetland. And we are the Wetland Protection Act Board. So I don't feel that I should recuse myself.
Is that your decision? Your decision is you won't recuse yourself?
Yes.
Okay. Steve?
I don't personally see, I'm not in a butter to the property, I have no financial interest in 508. I admit that I have a history with Mr. Jennings, but I'm not sure that I could get an opinion from the ethics.
Yeah, we can do that after.
Yeah. So I'm not prepared to make a,
Decision at this time?
Yep.
Okay, we'll move forward. We
well,
appreciate your,
just to state on the record, 508 International is the leasee of the property. So any property owned by Brenton and Salou on that map in this discussion is leased by us.
Okay, we'd like that,
Okay.
we'd like that information.
Sure.
Not verbally, we'd like it
I can give you a copy of that.
Yeah,
Yep. Give you a statement from Mr. O'Neill.
okay. Beck, you wanna go? You're the one that, you have the,
Yeah, you have a copy of the enforcement order
Okay.
there. So, right, the reason we're here is because we issued the enforcement order. I know you got your copy a little late because it got sent back with an issue with the address on there. Copy was sent to Ann Salou as the property owner. I mean, until we receive that copy of the lease and, you know, knowing that Ann is okay that either you're representing her or you're okay to move forward with discussion on the property because you are the leasee, I do think that the property owner should be part of the discussion, but we can cross that bridge when you give us that information or not and get something from Ann on that too, as the property owner. But, so we're here because we issued the enforcement order. You know, just kind of summarizing, we went out in May. The bridge was constructed in the wetland. There are some trails over there. We didn't further explore beyond that one point what other work may have been done. We had the discussion that, you know, it was your understanding, you thought that portion of the property was the piece in Charlton. We had an agreement, you know, that you were gonna provide us with that documentation because you believed it was in Charlton, which is different than the best information that we have available to us. You'd come to that meeting beginning of, well, in May, and then we asked you to come back, give you a month to come back for our June 18th meeting. We thought you'd come in with that plan, or we'd have a plan by that date. We didn't receive a plan, and no one came in. Commission determined that time to issue the enforcement order because that work was in violation because there was no permits for that work. So that's why we're here, so.
Yeah, and one thing just to clarify, I think in terms of construction, this bridge that we're talking about is believed to be constructed sometime in the mid to late 80s. It's an existing crossing. All that was done was the decking on top of the boards, basically on top of, lies on top of telephone poles, was repaired. It's not a new structure. There's no new construction. This is just repair of an existing crossing. And I think that the appropriate approach would be to seek a request for a determination of applicability because we're talking about maintenance, basically trail maintenance. And this is certainly something which we believe could be done without an order of conditions because of if you look at it, it's 40 or 50 feet long, and what you're talking about is replacing the decking on top of an existing structure. We also, in connection with that appeal that Mr. Chidester and Mr. Barnacle were the unsuccessful applicants with the DEP.
let's just keep.
No,
let's
the
just keep it to this,
DEP was out there coincidentally
Last
Thursday in connection with the final inspection of the replication area.
Yeah.
Mr. Jennings asked Gary Delmain to look at this. He did. He didn't see that, didn't appear to him that there was any issue with it, and said that, you know, he wasn't sure that perhaps a request for determination of applicability should be filed and the board can make that determination, but this is routine trail maintenance.
Do you have documentation showing, like photographs or anything showing that this was here before? I mean, I think that would be an important aspect of the,
There's
determine that it's-
there's 5 miles of trail that I've never taken a picture of it. I have no reason to do so. I mean, I'm not gonna start documenting 5 miles of trail in Sturbridge that's been in existence since we started leasing the property.
How much trails in Sturbridge? Oh, not 5 miles, that's for sure.
That's not the only trail that's in Sturbridge.
I beg your pardon?
That's not the only trail that's in Sturbridge. There's miles of trail that's in Sturbridge on our property.
And is it crossing wetland?
No.
Well, no,
besides
we're
this
just-
one?
We're just talking
No.
about this one.
Yeah, and
but I'm
I
saying, I
think,
don't-
you know, perhaps if you looked at it, and you could look at from what I understand from Mr. Jennings, the telephone poles are, you know, they're not new. I think you could also, I mean, if you're just looking at this picture, it doesn't look to me like I don't know how you would get telephone poles in there, would still have all the vegetation on either side of it without any sort of evidence of, you know, construction. I mean, it's clearly, you be able to tell by looking at the structural support that what you're talking about is replacing the decking.
You know, regardless, what, you know, as DEP told you, whether it's a repair or building a new one, you have to file.
Well, that's why we're request for determination of applicability is what we will be filing.
Okay, so when can you have the file?
I don't know, that's just really filling out the permit, right?
I didn't hear.
It's really just filling out the permit for the request of determination.
You're filling it out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Week?
file it and we'll take a look at it. I mean, that's.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if that's, you know, if that's the direction you want to go in, that's fine. Have
Well,
no
I think you can,
objection.
you have the right to file that if you believe that that's the direction you think this needs to move forward in, and they make a determination off that information. But I think you need some supporting documentation with that, because it definitely, when we're out there, I mean, there's equipment that was down here. It looks like, I don't know if there was a trail here, because I've never been here before. It looks like there was a lot of activity that might have been expansion if there was a trail there. It's unknown. I don't know, like I said, I've never been there, so I've never seen if there was an existing bridge there, but, you know, a lot of people get used telephone poles that don't look new and use them too. So I think there just needs to be some type of supporting documentation for that claim that something was already there. I mean, you know, we know that that equipment was going down there, could have been carrying something down there, you know, could have been put together there. We just don't know that information, so I think the more information you can have to support that claim would be needed with that filing to move forward that way.
There was no equipment going down there.
I understand. I mean, you're looking for some corroboration, and we'll see what we can
and put that
generate
in
for
that.
you.
Wasn't it our understanding when Mr. Jennings came in before that, he was going to bring information indicating that that was not in Sturbridge?
That's correct.
Well,
It may not be in Sturbridge, but if it's the
we've never
extent that it is, we're
argued the
prepared to
question
file
of
this
whether or
with you.
not.
Yeah.
We're going to do the survey, okay? So that you and your friend Moose, when you guys come over, take pictures on our property.
I don't take
We
pictures.
can understand
Gentlemen,
where,
let's
Yeah.
keep this to
well,
the side.
if he's
This is
gonna
just-
interject in the conversation, then I might as well
Well, I
just talk to
think he
him
raised a good
because,
point. You
you know.
did say it was Charles.
Let me jump in for a
process
minute.
of-
Just let me jump in for a minute. So, we've commissioned the survey work. It's difficult this time of year to get somebody to do it, and it's in the middle of the woods, and there are leaves on the trees and everything else. So, but regardless of, we're still pursuing that. We don't have it to present to you, so we're going to file a request for determination of applicability for this, and then we'll have you look at it, and you can make your determination based on what you see.
Good. Simple as that. Any problems, guys? I mean,
For
that's
the,
what we're here for. We don't want people willy-nilly working in the wetlands. We try and protect our wetlands,
Absolutely.
and so we'd like you to file.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this picture, and there's nothing that I find shocking, actually, I have to say that. And it doesn't, I don't know how you could put telephone poles in there and have it look like that, unless somebody's very strong and carrying them on their back. But in any event, you can take your look and make your examination, and we'll,
That's just
Yeah.
your opinion.
that's correct.
Okay? Thank you for
Okay.
coming in.
Very good. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a good evening.
Wait a minute, one thing on the timing of the filing. Can you have it filed for the next meeting, the 20th?
When is your next meeting?
August 20th?
about 5 weeks away. It gives you
Oh, sure.
plenty of
Yeah,
time
yeah,
to
yeah.
put
Probably can
that.
have the you can find out whether that's in Sturbridge or not by then.
That's possible. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Excellent.
Ellen?
So I just want to be
Thank you.
clear, so you're going
Would
to
we
hold
wanna
off.
walk that site, and would we be given permission to walk the site?
I stated to Becky that, just like Charlton Conservation, just like Mass DEP, you guys have an open door policy to come onto the property anytime you would like,
Yeah.
with exclusion to naturally people who have no trespass orders on the property and people who have participated in citizens' appeal against the property. So that would eliminate some members. But with knowledge beforehand of when you're coming out, I always say, sure, come on out, let's walk the property. We have nothing to hide, and we ask for a written report afterwards, and that's it. What did you find on the property? Anything associated with allegations that led to the nature of your visit, or just like this visit, we came out, we walked the property, and this is what we saw.
So if you guys could make it a priority to have the application made before the 6th or the 5th,
Yeah.
which is when we're planning on doing our site visits for the meeting on the 20th, so.
Yeah,
We have,
that won't be a
yeah,
problem.
we have filing deadlines. You can find it online, which gives you, because you have to file the legal ad and a butter notification. So the deadline's a bit before that time too, so,
Okay,
yeah.
yep,
Okay.
not a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
All right, well, I'm sorry, before they leave, just want to be clear, the enforcement order is still issued. It's on hold at the moment while
Until-
they submit the request for determination of applicability and move forward that way. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
I scoffed at my wife when she said, "You're not gonna get home until 10 o'clock." Well, I should not scoff at my wife.
This is moving a lot
This is
faster than I thought, so I'm actually kind of thrilled that
I was
it's not
thinking,
even
I was
10
thinking
o'clock
11,
yet.
we'd be lucky.
You see these 5 Cs?
Yeah.
That's continuation.
Yeah.
Where are we on our
Have been
trees?
completed?
Trail?
It'd be 10:30.
158 Lane 8, Mr. Nielsen. All right, Mr. Nielsen has 2 trees he'd like to request to come down, and he has some trees over his house he'd like to prune. There are some additional trees that are probably outside our 200-foot buffer zone and are within National Grid or whatever utility companies right away, because there's a power line there that are dead that'll probably get taken care of by them. So we're not worrying about those trees at this time.
That'll be taken care of by National Grid?
Yeah,
Okay.
yep, he's gonna call them out because they're over the wires, so they have the right to go in and remove those type of things, so. All right, we have this large pine here, so our lake is, pretty far on the other side here. Large dead pine there. And you don't really need, here's the other one one's in here, dead tree. That's closer towards the lake.
Once it's laying down like that, we should just agree to have it gone.
Yeah.
So this is just so you can see the pine. It's pretty bad, so.
You think?
All right, so those are the 2 trees. They're clearly dead. Here's his house. Lake is on this side. There's a bankment that goes down. Still set back probably about 50 feet from the lake, up the bank there. He has a lot of these large pines that have branches over his house on all sides. You can kind of see here, here's a hemlock with some branches. He'd like to limb some of these taller pines over the house.
He wants to limb them?
Limb them, yeah, trim
Yeah.
them up.
Oh, no problem.
Yep, so it's just to remove those 2 dead and then, limbing.
Sounds
Why are we
good.
sitting here?
Yeah.
Well,
Anybody have a
because,
question on that? No? Sounds good to me.
all right,
You gotta make our ex-wife right.
We have to
this is,
approve it, right?
What?
you gotta vote.
Yeah.
All in favor?
See, you rush me, I don't pay attention to your voting or not. I'm moving on to the next thing here.
I'm keeping them.
My
Thank
fault,
you.
My fault. I got Steve there.
86 McGargle. We have a project site next to this 84 McGargle, I believe. They just had a couple trees they took down. This is a dead oak, clearly dead. I went out there.
And they want to
Ooh.
Yeah. Yep,
All in
it's
favor?
Just that one tree?
just the one.
Yep.
Yep. Yep, it's far from the lake.
Gypsy moth.
Yep. So, but when I was out there, I noticed this on the other side.
Wow.
So that's the wetland, the Mass Wildlife property. So I asked this woman, I said, oh, do you know anything about the brush pile on the other side of the road? She goes, no. So I called Mr. Sykes, who owns the other property, who just had the trees removed. And I said, oh, did your tree guy leave all his cuttings on the other side of the road? He goes, yeah. I said, all right, well, you got to get those removed because it's in the wetland. He said he'd take care of it. So I will follow up with him. We'll get those taken out of there. But yeah, it's in the wetland, so.
Wow.
Told him that filling of a wetland was a violation, and, you know, he was fine. He said he'll remove them, so. He'll be coming back soon anyways with starting his house project, so we'll make sure they're out, so.
Becky, the memo that you got when you were the agent, you were told to put blinders on. When you go out, you look at a site like this, you don't
Well, I
look
do
at-
most of the time, don't worry.
You don't look across the street.
Did we vote on that, the one?
Oh, sorry, yeah,
that-
vote on that.
I think we have to vote on
Vote.
that, too.
Yes, we have to vote.
Yeah.
All in favor?
All right.
Okay, next is 19 Mashapog Road. This is Outdoor World, or whatever it's called now. I think it has a different Great Trails, or 1,000 Trails. We have 3 dead trees right at campsites along the lake there. So I went out there. There's a dead pine, an oak, and a hemlock. They're clearly dead. I don't have any concerns. They have a lot of trees in the campground. I don't think we need replacements. So we've got this one here. We've got this dead oak, and so, I mean, they're obvious.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Pine right here, laying down, so.
And do we want to let the Jaguar Association come to the host again this year?
One more time.
All right, I'm in favor of that. Anybody?
Well, Eric doesn't know what it is, so.
What is it?
It's a Jaguar Association. They-
Like
they
the car,
come to
the
host.
car
They
Jaguars,
park
or
their
they gotta
cars
bring a
on
bunch
the
of big
lawn.
cats?
No.
That would be really cool, actually. I'd like to see that.
Wait a minute, Eric would know, Jaguars.
Jaguar, yes. Yeah. Okay.
So they just park the cars in the lawn by the lake, so they just send us a letter.
That's nice of them.
Yeah.
Ed, vote.
All in favor?
We're not concerned with any oil leaks
already
from those
voted.
cars, so.
I would.
This is about the 12th or 13th year.
Anything else, Beck?
Every year
I
they
have
come.
2 more things. One, it's a minor amendment to existing orders of conditions. So this is a project site, it was permitted, I think, early 2017. The previous property owner filed the plans for these sites, sold the properties, new property owner, developing.
Warren Road?
Yeah, this is Warren Road.
These
One of
ones
them.
they bought from the town?
I don't know, I think this is a different property owner. This is next to our property, though.
No, not where we bought. They bought these from the town when we got our property.
That I'm not sure, but
Okay.
the whoever's name was on the order is whoever might have bought it from the
We
town.
bought 2 of them.
So, yes, and then that person,
So,
got it permitted,
yeah.
with plans, and now there's new property owners. They want to change the house. So, this is, one's already built next to it. We're holding off on issuing a certificate because the site's not stabilized yet. You know, we could probably by the end of the year issue it, but this one, so I can pull up the other plan too. So limit of work has not changed. So when they started the other site, they put the erosion controls in for both properties. I went out, checked it, measured it with them. They've already cleared this site. Limit of work is not changing here. What is changing is, it was a 4-bedroom house, but it was 2 stories. They want a 1-story house. So the footprint of the house is a little bit bigger. And so we have the 100-foot buffer zone here. So a small portion of the house right here is now going to be within the 100-foot buffer zone. Same limit of work. They shifted the septic system closer to the road a little bit. So I can show you, well, I can't show you on here the plan, but I can show you, actually, maybe I have it saved somewhere else from when Glenn had it. I didn't scan it in. I have it in the file I can show you, but I...
So how far will the expanded profile be from?
For the house?
From the wetland?
The house will just be within the 100-foot buffer zone.
Yeah, so they moved it this much,
Yeah.
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
And what was the reason for that?
I think it's gonna be a,
From 2 stories to 1
yeah,
story.
2-story to 1-story, so,
Still a 4-bedroom.
yeah. So it doesn't change the septic, or, the limit of work's not changing either, it's just that.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, if
Anybody
it's,
have a problem with it?
not if the limit of work is the same.
Yeah, I didn't anticipate that you would, so.
All in favor?
Okay. All right, one more thing, not on the agenda. Where's my stuff?
Oh, not on the agenda. Call your wife.
I'll make it quick though, so you can say it was done by 10, so.
You don't know my wife, she's already in bed.
I would be too. So. All right, so this is 53 Karen Road. This is right on Cedar Lake.
What's the address again, please?
53 Karen. I'm just gonna show you some pictures. So, right to the side right here is an outdoor oil tank. They had a leak. So they had a leak which was reported to DEP on, let me find my notes so I don't tell you the wrong information here. On July 8th, CMG Environmental in town was called to go out there. They called me on the 10th, said that they were already out there. What was noticed was a slight oil sheen on the lake.
Oh.
And that's how it was determined that there was this leak. They immediately installed like a harbor boom and then another like more absorbent oil boom in the water. DEP's issued an immediate giving them immediate response actions identified to take care of immediately. So I went out there on Friday. I didn't meet Jerry from CMG out there. I just missed him, but he was doing some exploratory kind of test pits. Now, so they're not sure, maybe 150 gallons of oil leaked out of this. We have this tiered system going down to the lake here. And then there's down here, I have some more photos, there's a concrete retaining wall. He does think that a lot was contained probably behind this retaining wall, although it was on the surface water, it's in the groundwater. So his plan is first to be using like a vacuum truck to
Was this
remove.
DEP's plan that he's implementing?
Yes, so DEP, right, told them to apply absorbent materials to the area of the spill and containerize the resulting waste material for proper disposal. Within 60 days, they need to excavate and remove up to 50 cubic yards of contaminated soil associated with the release and properly dispose of it. De-water as necessary to facilitate soil removal activities and assess the impacts to private drinking water wells located within 500 feet. So actually, this person's well is behind us on the opposite side of the road. I think the others might be too. But these are all the things that DEP immediately ordered him to do. So I told him, obviously, immediately start doing everything. His proposal to kind of start, and this is just kind of vague here, regarding planned remedial activities, I anticipate using a Vector truck to remove impacted soil from the source location, approximately 30 feet upgrading of the lake to the head wall at the lake's edge. Planning for soil removal as well as fuel oil removal from the groundwater. I do not see a scenario that would require us to remove or alter the head wall at the water's edge. The harbor boom will remain in place for the duration of the remediation. Additional erosion sedimentation control measures will take place prior to invasive activities. So I did ask him for, I said, we're gonna need to issue an emergency authorization. I did ask for, I said, I'll need additional details for the commission. I anticipate that we'll need a timeline for the work and a work sequence plan. With that, can you include your anticipated follow-up testing requirements, et cetera? And then also, if additional work needs to get done in restoration, we might be looking at additional permitting beyond this too, if there's some type of long-term thing needs to be done, so.
So you issued the emergency permit?
I was gonna issue it today. I told them to move forward with whatever they need to do.
Because we need to take a vote on it, whether you did it or not.
Right.
Oh, yeah, yep,
Yeah.
yep. So,
Now, what's the address again?
53 Karen Road. So on the west side of Cedar
Yeah,
Lake.
it's quite a ways up Cedar Lake.
Is that the fuel oil tank?
Yeah.
I'm
What's,
assuming this might be a new one, but
oh, what was the size of the tank that they had?
150 gallons.
I
No,
think
that was the maximum capacity of the tank
Well,
they had?
that I don't know. That's what they're anticipating the release was, maybe because that's what the size was, so that I'm not
I
sure.
want to know, I'd like to know what the size of the tank
Okay.
was that was there, because they're saying it was 150 gallons. If that was a, 300-gallon tank, then I don't know that
Oh,
we
I
can
see.
assume that there
Yeah.
was only 150
Yeah, I
gallons
think
in it.
usually-
And I don't know, I'm,
An even number like that, I always assume that they're telling you what the size of the
Yeah,
tank
you know what
Yeah.
assume does.
Yeah.
is. Yeah, I
Thank
know.
you, Stephen,
I
that's a
know,
great
I know,
question.
I know.
so,
Assumes a pretty good way
We
to
can't
go
assume
about
that
it.
anyway,
No.
right? Because if it was a slow leak, it could have happened over a period of time, and
Right.
it could have dumped multiple.
Tank loads,
You could have
exactly.
recourse and put it
I mean,
in.
you'd probably figure it out pretty quickly if your heating bill went up significantly,
Okay.
but
yeah.
But not in
all
this
right.
season.
And I don't know, and I'll find out if that tank's been obviously removed off-site. I mean, the only thing, maybe if they used oil for the hot water, they would have needed something immediately, but is this obviously something, I mean, it looks like it could be, but obviously wouldn't install anything that doesn't meet code for outdoor, but we should make sure it has proper containment if something did happen, maybe,
Right.
so.
In the letter, did they indicate they found the leak or just the source of the leak?
I don't think it said. All I have, I mean, I spoke on the phone with the licensed site professional at CMG, and then I have DEP's, notice of responsibility to the property owner.
No, what these two guys are suggesting very strongly is that if the source of the leak has been there for a considerable period
Right.
of time, you could
What's-
have as much as 500 gallons in the ground.
Or more, who knows?
Right.
Some of these places.
So, yeah, I can ask that question
It's
too.
on automatic refill and they're not,
Yeah.
they're all winter.
Yeah.
So,
sign
Yeah,
it.
it's a good
Yeah,
point. It's
so I
probably-
drafted kind of a
it's probably
basic
moot point
thing.
how big the tank was, because it
Right.
it
Yeah.
could
you
have
know,
been
just,
for years.
just kind of stating the work
Yeah.
outlined in his email to me, and then by DEP, any additional excavation activities and potential work within resource areas will require the submittal of a work scope for review and additional permitting, et cetera, and some special conditions.
And we'd like to find out the size of the tank. And
Yep, I'll ask him.
if they saw where the source, where the leak was,
Right.
not,
What was the source of the leak?
we know it's the
You know,
tank.
was it right at the tank?
Could be the
yeah,
hose,
who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
could be anything.
It's only $3.50 a gallon, what the heck, $1,500? And the lake will love you for it.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion, we adjourn?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
9:56.
Hey, look at that.
See, Katie, not 10 o'clock.